Welcome back to the Career Profiles podcast. This is part 2 of the Manny Pacquiao career profile. And if you've listened to part 1, you'll have heard about his really difficult upbringing, how poor he really was and how difficult it really was growing up in the Philippines. Also, how he got into the sport of boxing, and of course some of his notable fights so far in his boxing career, as we covered fights with Erik Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera. But the second part of his career profile continues his unbelievable run of fights between 2005 and 2011, and of course up to this current day where he is currently at in the boxing world and beyond in his personal life. So we're really looking forward to delivering part 2 to you, and it will be a longer episode because there is so much to cover for the Manny Pacquiao story, but it's been one hell of a ride so far, and I'm really excited, Johnston, for part 2.
He's destroying all the Mexicans in a minute in part 1, isn't he? I mean, he's finished his trilogy already with Erik Morales. A fantastic trilogy that on its own is superb. And he's all of his fights now of Antonio Barrera, the Marco Antonio Barrera, the 2 fights with him. So Juan Manuel Marquez, he's had a fight with him in there as well. So we're going to move on to the next ones. We've obviously done a legendary night on that. But you're right, Sean. I mean, just to hear the stuff of Manny and how difficult it was, and his dad killing the dog to feed him, or himself, I'm not sure, but it's really tragic, and the death of his best friend in the ring as well. But a truly at times it's inspiring. You can see why the Filipinos love him so much, because he is one of them. He is them because he's come through such a poor, difficult situation to now being in this rich, famous person. And, you know, this one's going to be a lot about how much of a nice guy and generous he really is to his own Filipino people, as well as beyond, obviously, as well. So as we finished the last one, we mentioned that in his last couple of fights, Manny Pacquiao didn't feel 100%. He felt 50%, in fact. That's what he told his trainer, Freddie Roach. And Bob Arum realised that he needed to take a little bit of control of the situation. Coming across in a great light at the minute, Bob Arum. Well, Bob Arum, he took control of that situation of Manny and keeping him away from the Philippines and those other distractions. And he said, well, no doubt, with the help, of course, with Freddie Roach, he actually ordered that the training camp now for the next the Marquez rematch, Juan Manuel Marquez rematch, would now be held at the Wild Card. You'd always be training there. So when training in Los Angeles, Manny couldn't go out all night on gambling benders. So as long as they're not in the Philippines and Vegas, basically, he can stay away from the casinos. He also demanded that he stop basketball games. He didn't want him to get injured, and Manny agreed to not play a month before, not just this fight, but other fights going forward. And it worked. And Bob Arum said, I'll go by results. And look at the results here. He's in unbelievable shape. I've never seen him in this kind of shape. He's incredibly fit and focused, and I'm sure you'll see the best Manny Pacquiao you're going to see. At his best, he's non-stop machine. Pacquiao said, I want to be known beyond the Philippines as a great fighter. I realise no one can help me in the ring but me. I feel confident, with no doubt, but the good performances that are coming this year, and that starts now. You'll see a big difference between this fight with Marquez and the first one. And Marquez asked, I don't know why people think he's the Mexican killer. He, as in Pacquiao, didn't beat me. This fight is for me, my fans, and the Mexican people. He wanted to destroy the man who had become known as the Mexicutioner, a nickname actually coined by Manny Pacquiao himself. The fight was called Unfinished Business because it had been 4 years since their first meeting. So they would meet again on March 15, 2008 at Mandalay Bay. Pacquiao was guaranteed $3 million, and Marquez, the WBC super featherweight champion, got $1.5 million less. The champion's crazy. But the Ring Magazine junior lightweight title was also on the line, and it was also live on HBO pay-per-view.
The New York Times wrote this on the fight, and they said, the first round was far calmer than the first 3 minutes in 2004 when Marquez was knocked down 3 times. This time, the WBC champion wobbled Pacquiao late in the second round with a left hook, thrilling a partisan Marquez crowd of 11,061. In the last 20 seconds of the third round, however, the left-handed Pacquiao decked Marquez with a powerful left. Marquez got up from the bout's lone knockdown, but was forced to grasp the ropes with his right arm seconds later when Pacquiao delivered a stiff left-right combination. Marquez stayed upright, but confusedly began following Pacquiao to his corner at the bell. Pacquiao swept the fourth round, but he said he suffered a bothersome abrasion near the right eye in the round that a cut man was seen treating at the end of the seventh round. Marquez won at least 3 rounds between the 5th and 8th on the scorecards by pounding Pacquiao with counter-punches and combinations. Marquez, though, suffered a cut near the right eye during a 7th round headbutt. Pacquiao stopped his scorecard hemorrhaging in the 9th by landing a left that damaged Marquez's cut area. In the 10th, Pacquiao wobbled Marquez with another left and tried to go for the kill against the ropes near his corner. Marquez, producing a big-hearted effort, survived the Pacquiao attack, then won the 11th and 12th rounds on the Miller and Roth cards. Both fighters backed up the other in the final half of the final round. Now, as the bell sounded, both fighters were hoisted onto the shoulders of team members, holding their arms aloft in victory. The voting among judges was split. Dwayne Ford gave Pacquiao a 115-112 edge, and Jerry Roth saw Marquez winning 115-112. The deciding score was turned in by Judge Tom Miller, who gave Pacquiao the victory 114-113.
Well, Marquez felt hard done by, and he said it was a bad decision. The first knockdown, it got me cold. But then I adjusted my game plan and I thought I dictated the rest of the fight. People know I won. The fight is not just one round. I felt I won. I won. And Roach said it was a close fight and it could have gone either way. Richard Schaefer argued for an immediate rematch, telling Pacquiao's promoter Bob Arum there's controversy. It was a great fight. And Arum replied, nobody's talking about not doing that fight again. The question is when. So that was a second, so there would be a trilogy. It was close. Manny was fortunate to get a decision in their rematch, but it was another impressive fight between the pair. On June 28, 2008, Manny Pacquiao cemented his name in the history books by becoming the only Asian fighter to win 4 major titles in 4 weight classes when he captured the WBC lightweight title from David Diaz with a 9th round stoppage. Pacquiao hurt Diaz with an uppercut in round 8, and in the 9th, a jab followed by a left hand that Diaz never saw coming. It sent him face first to the canvas in a show of speed and power, forcing the referee to jump in and stop the action. To say that Manny Pacquiao was famous at this point would be an understatement. He was now just as famous in America as he was in the Philippines, where he was treated godlike. His next victory, the middle of this extraordinary winning streak, would catapult him onto an even higher level. But at this moment in 2008, he was a global superstar. But Pacquiao's global appeal, especially in his home country, is from what he sees as the greater purpose, which is his fight against poverty, which he came from. His bid for a congressional seat in 2007 failed, but soon Pacquiao's political mission seemed to be a strong possibility.
Lennox Lewis said once, "The people have rallied behind him and feel like they're a part of him because they can see his talent, his dedication, his grace and his class. The grip he holds over the Philippines is similar to Nelson Mandela's influence in South Africa. I can surely see Manny becoming the Philippine president one day." Pacquiao believes his ability to provide charity is a direct gift from God. Doing it quietly and with class is as important as the money. Once again, author Gary Andrew Poole tells a story of the generosity of the man that stretched from the Philippines to America, and he wrote, "One day, a 7-foot-tall homeless man was outside the wild card. He used to play professional basketball in the Philippines. Great hook shot, unstoppable. When he lived in the Philippines, he was rich. He had maids, cooks, and a chauffeur. Pacquiao walked by him. Pacquiao wasn't going to pity the man and let him lose face. The man asked Pacquiao for money. Pacquiao gave a hand signal and someone from the entourage handed him $100. Pacquiao told him to buy some shoes, sounding like a kindly priest. Pacquiao knows his Filipino basketball history and he recognised the man, but he didn't want to bring him any shame. The next day, Pacquiao saw him again. The man had shoes, but there is no way they cost $100. Where's my change? Pacquiao smiled. Now, Pacquiao's image management is sort of handled by Michael Conks, another troubled individual among his ever-growing entourage, whose responsibilities seem to mainly include keeping journalists away from his boss and watching over Pacquiao's money. When anyone wants cash, Pacquiao immediately agrees, but Conks will be the one to say no to the people who are taking the piss. Everyone seems to scheme and try to work around Conks, who protects his boss with an intensity that gets everyone upset, but he is needed among the many sharks.
He certainly is, and before Manny's next fight, he was the flag bearer for the Philippines national team at the opening ceremonies in the 2008 Beijing Olympics. He was the first Filipino non-Olympian to do so. Pacquiao was never one to duck a challenge, but his next fight, the public believed, was almost suicidal, and that was a fight against Oscar De La Hoya, a natural welterweight. Not only was the additional weight a factor, De La Hoya was 5 inches taller. However, De La Hoya's camp knew better than to take Pacquiao lightly. Schaefer witnessed what happened to Barrera 5 years ago at first hand, and he said, "I'm pretty worried about this fight. Actually, Manny doesn't just win, he hurts people." With Pacquiao continued to move up in weight, and unseemingly to do so with ease, talk inevitably turned to steroids, which is something that still crops up today. And it has been a subject that Alex Ariza, who had now come in to the wildcard gym after he was a client of Diego Corrales, who actually died in a motorcycle accident, and he actually liked to discuss this idea. He was open to it, and he was brought in to the team to add modern nutritional techniques into Manny's training. Now, while Pacquiao has never tested positive for any performance-enhancing drugs, there is an emerging skepticism about his ability to get bigger and faster. Haters started calling Pacquiao Pacroid, and when Ariza hears these whispers, it bothers him because he sees his boss as a man of honor, and he says this: "Steroids, I take the allegations as a compliment. Misery loves company. They can't imagine what it does in the gym, the hard work and sacrifice. It's not about motivating him, it's about slowing him down. He is like a horse at the gate, just wanted to push through. He refuses to take Advil or Motrin. He is such a person of honor. Someone hits him low, Manny is told to hit back at the same range. Manny refuses to do it. Manny won't fight you dirty." On December the 6th, 2008, at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Manny moved up to the welterweight division to challenge Oscar De La Hoya in a non-title fight.
Well, the idea of having De La Hoya and Pacquiao fight came from HBO boxing analyst Larry Merchant, talking with ESPN boxing analyst Dan Raphael. Larry then presented the idea to Richard Schaefer and Bob Arum, who then offered the idea to Freddie Roach. It was even mentioned on the pay-per-view broadcast that it was Larry's idea, even mentioning Dan Raphael by name. The fight was eventually agreed as a joint promotion between Golden Boy Promotions and Top Rank. Freddie Roach, since the De La Hoya Mayweather fight, had said in the media that Oscar can't pull the trigger anymore. Before they faced off, De La Hoya explained, "I know he's a strong fighter and I have to figure out a way to pull the trigger. I have to find a way to increase my speed. I have quite a task in front of me. We have to figure out how quick we're going to neutralise him. It's going to be an explosive fight. My pride and Manny's pride." Pacquiao said, 20 years from now, 30, 40 years, I want my name to be at the top level of boxing history. Roach had devised a strategy to pull off the upset, and having worked in De La Hoya's corner, Roach knew what to do. He said Manny has to take the jab away from Oscar, get inside the jab and fight at short range. Oscar is a distance fighter. He has long arms. I don't think it's huge, but it's our biggest problem. And it's no secret we're going to attack the body first and break him down. Pacquiao claimed he walked around at 155 pounds, so the jump in weight class wasn't going to be bothering him. Although Pacquiao went into the fight as the recognised pound-for-pound #1 boxer in the world, some boxing experts felt that the jump to 147 pounds could be too far above his natural weight against the much larger De La Hoya.
Well, tickets reportedly sold out just hours after they went on sale. The total gate revenues was said to be nearly $17 million, apparently making the fight the second largest gate revenue in boxing history after Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather Jr. So the Bleacher Report wrote on this fight, and it said, Pacquiao dominated the fight from the opening bell, unleashing relentless attacks to the body and to the head of De La Hoya, who failed to retaliate because of the quickness of Pacquiao, who gave him a difficult night in finding his target. 7 and 8 were totally Pacquiao's rounds, and De La Hoya's right side of his face was swollen. He was beaten black and blue. De La Hoya had to hold on to the top rope to keep his balance in the 7th, and all 3 judges scored the round 10-8 for Pacquiao, despite the fact there being no knockdown. It was that much of a pasting, basically. But back to the Bleacher Report, who wrote, at the end of the round 8 and before entering the 9th round, referee Tony Weeks cautioned De La Hoya for not throwing punches and threatened to stop the fight if he has no answer to the onslaught of the Filipino boxer. But Weeks' words were not wasted after De La Hoya's coach Nacho Beristian, who asked De La Hoya in his corner if he was all right and if he is dizzy, raised the white towel, signifying the quitting of the Mexican-American hotshot Oscar De La Hoya. Faster hands and that left straight hand was a difference, as Manny battered De La Hoya. He said after the fight, Oscar was my idol, and actually he still is my idol, but I always believed that I would win this fight. Pacquiao kissed his gloves and looked at the heavens after another massive victory. The winning streak would continue, and once again, he was fighting another world-class fighter, and that would be Ricky Hatton.
Before the fight, a Sports Illustrated writer said, "Put a gun to my head and I'm taking Pacquiao. While I think both have the punching power to win by KO, I have a feeling this one goes to a decision." Well, on that night, Manny destroyed De La Hoya. Ricky actually sat ringside and said, "My goal was to fight the winner, and Pacquiao has proved that he's the best fighter in the sport." Now, before their fight, both fighters attended an event at Hollywood's Roosevelt Hotel. Actors Mickey Rourke and Mark Wahlberg were there, and Ricky acknowledged that their fight was worthy of the big deal. He said, "If there was ever a fight worthy of a red carpet, I would like to think it's this one. He's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He just beat the biggest name in boxing in Oscar De La Hoya. I'd like to think I'm not too shabby as well. But I think the winner is boxing. I'm sure Manny will do his nation proud. I'm going to do my nation proud. It's going to be an exceptional fight," Pacquiao said in a deep voice, mimicking Mel Gibson's character, William Wallace in Braveheart. "I fight for freedom. I fight for Scotland," and the crowd laughed. The fight was originally cancelled, as the two sides could not agree on how to split the purse. They eventually agreed on a 52-48 split in favour of Pacquiao, who received a guaranteed $12 million, and Hatton expected to receive around $8 million. The fight took place May 2nd, 2009 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, with the IBO, the Ring and the lineal light welterweight titles on the line. Now into the fight, and Hatton was put down twice in the opening round. He beat the count, but he unsteadily rose from his stool to come out for the second.
Well, Freddie Roach, before we go into that second round, Freddie Roach had watched tapes of Hatton, and he said that he knew he tended to lower his right hand before a punch. He felt confident that Pacquiao could exploit this if he followed what they had done in training. He told Manny in the corner after that first round, after knocking him down twice, "Go get there and feint this guy. Once you feint him, he'll cock his hand and he'll open up and you'll hit him with the hook." So he needs to go underneath it. About half a second after the 10-second clapper, Pacquiao hit Hatton with a vicious left hand, an exceptional punch. Now, it was a clean arcing punch that has etched itself into the memories of many boxing fans, including me and Sean, massively. Hatton was out cold and flat on the canvas. Roach was right. Hatton tended to drop his right hand just before a punch. Pacquiao sensed it and he reacted with a fateful blow. Boxing historians believed Pacquiao had the most powerful punch of any smaller fighter in the history of the game. This punch against Ricky Hatton makes a great case for that. Manny gazed over at Hatton and went to his corner and prayed. They worked on Hatton, who appeared comatose. While keeping half an eye on Hatton, Pacquiao hugged Alexis Ariza and Bob Arum, a monster and a gentleman in the ring, quite simply. That's what he was. Hatton eventually climbed off the floor several minutes later, and paramedics were there to sit him on the stool. He remained unable to communicate coherently at first, but then back in the dressing room before being taken to the Valley Hospital, we managed to say, "It was a hard loss, but I'm okay. I really didn't see the punch coming. It was a great shot. I know I'll be okay." Pacquiao was the IBO and Ring Magazine World Light Welterweight Champion and a record equaling 6th Division title and 4th consecutive win in a different weight class. Roach called him, "Manny is a monster. He is the best fighter ever." There is no surprise here.
Manny Pacquiao was the absolute best fighter on the planet at this point. Of course, the Floyd Mayweather Jr. fans would disagree, but what he was doing to one superstar after another, well, it was nothing short of legendary. His marketability had now skyrocketed, and he was earning millions of dollars, yet many felt that he would end up broke because he would just give his money away. Now, we will let author, again, Gary Andrew Poole, explain this in his extract from the book. Following a fight, he gets 40% of the purse after he pays everyone. His wife gets 30% of his money. She has a boutique business in which she buys expensive handbags and resells them, but she has a reputation for more orthodox spending and saving habits. His wife told Rekha Trinidad, the journalist, if he earned, say, 50,000 pesos, he gets to keep 20 pesos and the rest goes to me. We could not split it down the middle. I have an entire household and the kids to maintain. Besides, Manny has a very expensive lifestyle. When Pacquiao gets paid, there often comes a torrent of financial irresponsibility. He uses hand signals to dictate cash transactions. It is not unusual for someone in his group to carry a briefcase full. It is rumoured of $100,000 in cash. The money flows to different people, from street people with sob stories to more legitimate business deals. Most people will say he won't go broke because his riches go so far into the Philippines, and yet Pacquiao's myriad number of businesses, from pool halls to convenience stores, to his gifts of Rolex watches, to clearing friends' gambling debts, real estate, roosters, M16s, hospital beds, a cinder block business, apartments, houses, condos, and God knows what else, quickly drain his net worth.
Absolutely, and if you thought the entourage of Sugar Ray Robinson was eccentric, then just listen to Manny Pacquiao's. So he has a guy who is attempted to breed a lion with a tiger, apparently, an arms dealer, a gambling lord. There are the people who are hanging around, obviously the hangers-on, and their duties just totally unclear. A personal biographer whose work has never seen the light of day. A personal car washer who makes $200 per wash 3 times a week. There's a living dog walker and someone who tries to figure out which flavour of Gatorade the champ will desire that day. Another guy whose sole duty seems to be to hold an exercise mat until Manny is ready to use it to do his sit-ups. There are poker, chess and dart companions, guys who laugh at jokes, and guys who dry the champ's legs with a towel when he works out. A few are entrusted with holding suitcases filled with cash. There's a personal photographer and 2 people, maybe more, who shoot and edit daily videos. Translators who speak good English. Drivers, publicists, gophers and security. A voice coach because he likes to sing. An English tutor. There are other layabouts who don't seem to have any other duty except to walk very close to Manny Pacquiao when he is on the stairs, just in case he falls and catch him. That is crazy. To Manny, his entourage is an indispensable part of his life. He says, I'm a nice guy. I am generous. They help me stay loose. He also admitted that with all the people around me, it's hard to find a real friend, a die-hard person like Freddie. We're honest. We don't lie to each other. The strategy we share is nothing but the truth, and I'm lucky to have him in my corner. And Bill Kaplan, a boxing publicist, said, it's not really an entourage. It's a crowd. He just accepts him.
No, it's just a bunch of sponges and hangers-on. I think it's quite obvious why they like to be around Manny Pacquiao. And yes, I think officially this is the point where we can say Manny Pacquiao has the most eccentric and biggest entourage in boxing and probably in boxing history as well.
Yeah, we forgot to mention the fact that he has a group of men that sleep around on the floor while he sleeps in bed as well. Don't know what they do. They just lay there.
Well, the conditioning coach, Alex Ariza, explains, you see, Manny, he's always surrounded by people with their hands out. Manny's got a lot of heart. There are mountains of people asking him for tickets or asking him to fly him there or here. They ask him to invest in businesses, t-shirt companies, or who knows what. They're like vultures. Well, Pacquiao's next opponent was another superstar in the Puerto Rican Miguel Cotto. He was the WBO welterweight champion, and it would be for a 7th title. The rumour at the time was that if the Filipino won the fight, everyone hoped finally he would be matched up against Floyd Mayweather Jr. During the run-up to the Cotto fight, Pacquiao had appeared on the cover of Time magazine's Asia edition. Time called him the latest saviour of boxing, a fighter with enough charisma, intelligence and backstory to help rescue a sport lost in the labyrinth of pay-per-view. Pacquiao has a myth of origin equal to that of any Greek or Roman hero. To go from 106 pounds to 147 pounds, a 41-pound swing had finally captured the mainstream media's imagination. The New York Times produced a headline which said, with Pacquiao Cotto, boxing is ready for a rebirth again. During the media tour, the two men visited Puerto Rico. Jose A. Sanchez Foreigner, a respected sports writer, said, there was a surprising number of people who went to the press conference just to meet Manny. Manny was surrounded by a mob of Puerto Rican fans of his who wanted him to beat Cotto, actually. Of course, there was a big pro-Cotto crowd, but Manny had a huge number of fans as well. There is a perceptible anti-Cotto feeling amongst many sports fans in Puerto Rico, but even taking that into consideration, the number of pro-Manny fans who showed up to support him in the local press conference sincerely amazed me, and I'm pretty used to dealing with crazed boxing fans.
Taking Cotto's fans, incredible. And on November 14, 2009, again at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, loves that arena, Manny made his way to the ring, live on HBO pay-per-view. The fight was billed as firepower. Now, many Filipinos, including the vice president, had made the trip to Vegas to bear witness to another historical moment for their superstar boxer. Saeed, a Filipino sports writer, explained, we are having hard times in our country. There is terrorism. There is poverty. There are kidnappings every day. We find solace in Manny Pacquiao. Cotto, also the 4-time title holder, took the opening round of it was a hugely eagerly anticipated matchup, but Pacquiao came back in the second and then floored Cotto in the third. Cotto's trainer, Joe Santiago, said he hit harder than we expected and he was stronger than we expected. However, Cotto did come back strong after that knockdown in the third, but was down again in round 4 from a left uppercut. For most of the bout, Cotto's face was a bloody mess, and his white trunks were now stained red from his own blood. Pacquiao was so fast delivering a hand-snapping blow and then darting outside again. It was a beautiful performance, which forced Freddie Roach to admit himself that Manny Pacquiao, well, he is in his prime. It was beginning to turn into a massacre at this point, and Roach said after the fight, if I was in Cotto's corner, I would have thrown the towel in the 9th round. They should have compassion for him. In the 12th round, 55 seconds in, The referee stopped the fight. Before being rushed to the hospital, Cotto actually stopped to console his mother who was crying in the corner. Pacquiao's team held him in the air. He smiled and winked and talked about his gratitude to the fans and how he would be singing at a concert that night at the Mandalay Bay. Or the crowd chanted, "We want Floyd, we want Floyd."
Pacquiao would return to the Philippines to spend time with his family and start laying the groundwork for his congressional bid. Boxing would have to take a back seat for now. 9 days after Manny's destruction of Cotto, there was a massacre in the Maguindano province where gunmen massacred 57 men and women, including 30 journalists. Using an extract from the author, again Gary Andrew Poole, we will describe what happened. And it reads, "The victims were shot dead and buried in mass graves near the highway where they were stopped. The victims, mostly relatives or supporters of a political rival who ran for governor against Andal Apatuan Sr., were murdered and mutilated. One victim had 16 bullet wounds in a groin area. Andal Apatuan Jr., a former vice mayor and descendant of the politically powerful clan, has been accused of leading more than 100 local police and militiamen in the ambush. A total of 197 suspects were charged with multiple murder counts, including family patriarch Ampatan Sr. and other members of that clan that has ruled the impoverished province for years, and it wouldn't be until the end of July 2010 that 64 suspects had been arrested and the others remained at large. All those in custody who have been arraigned have denied the charges against them, and the Philippine government dropped the charges against Ampatuan Jr.'s brothers, Solde and Ahmad Ampatan. The massacre was the single deadliest event ever recorded by the Committee to Protect Journalists. President Macabal Arroyo, a Pacquiao supporter, imposed martial law, the first time since the dictatorship of Fernando Marcos, which ended in 1986, as the police and the military investigated the crime. Dozens of suspects were arrested, and the property and house raids yielded more than 1,500 weapons that the government said were being used in a rebellion. In the intertwined Filipino social structure, the Ampatuan family is one that everyone, including Pacquiao, knows well. So just a little bit of a side note for everybody as to what was actually going on post the Cotto fight. So you can understand now at this point why Manny Pacquiao decides even more so that he does want to get into politics.
So why are we telling you this? Well, a friend of Gary Andrew Poole says that no one can afford to bury their dead in this province, so Pacquiao foots the bill. He donates hospital beds and hands out school supplies to poor students. If sick and in need of care, the villagers travel, usually by motorcycle, to a clinic in General Santos City. They return with hospital invoices and bills for prescriptions that they can't possibly pay. One elderly gentleman even walked barefoot for nearly a day in the hope that Pacquiao would shell out $50 for his family's medical expenses. Manny is the area's welfare system, as well as paying for various things such as athletic fees, arts programs, which is called Manny Pacquiao Dance Troupe, and countless other social programs. A local kid had lost his leg, and Pacquiao had paid for the operation, rehabilitation expenses, and a prosthetic. The procedure and fake leg would have financially ruined her family. Pacquiao's ultimate pride comes from paying the impoverished children who go to school as Pacquiao scholars, of which there are more than 500. It is for these amazing gestures of goodwill that Manny Pacquiao was hell-bent on moving into politics for his country that he adored so much. Although the press felt that he did not have the tools to do it. So the Economist actually wrote this about Pacquiao and him going into politics. It said, Mr. Pacquiao has tried politics before and failed. In 2007, he stood to represent his home district in Congress, but neither his popularity nor his money could knock out his opponent, who hailed from an entrenched political clan. Mr. Pacquiao has since devised a political party, the People's Champ Movement, but it seems to have no particular ideas to champion. So on November the 21st, 2009, Pacquiao announced that he would run again for a congressional seat, but this time in Sarangi Province, the hometown of his wife, Jinky.
Manny Pacquiao spent much of 2010 giving speeches across his country as he tried to gain a congressional seat. A week before the 2010 Filipino election, 6 armed men in 3 vehicles blocked Mayor Enrique Yap Jr.'s vehicle, the brother of Manny's friend Tata Yap. According to veteran General Santos journalist Edwin Espejo, they were held at gunpoint, but Yap was able to call for police assistance, which rushed to his aid, and the 6 suspects were arrested. The police said that one of the 2 vehicles recovered by authorities was registered under the name of Pacquiao's wife, Jinky. Several campaign stickers of Pacquiao, as well as 1 rifle and 1.45 caliber pistol, were also recovered from the 2 Toyota vans. The heat came down on Pacquiao immediately, but he denied any involvement in the ambush, and Espejo says the alleged ambush involved Enrique Yap as the reported target. Well, it's never been proven. Then there was an explosion that nearly hit the convoy of Sarangani Governor Miguel Rene Dominguez. People thought that Pacquiao had done it, but he claimed it was a setup and accused his opponents of ambushing him, and he said, "What they did was ambush me, since the motorcycle used in the explosion was owned by their supporters. They wanted to frame me up." The police had no suspect. Pacquiao said the vans were under his wife's name because she has a rent-a-car business. "I have God wherever I am. They should not resort to creating stories," he said. During this time, there were also many stories being written about Manny and his love affairs, maybe as an attempt to derail his political career, or maybe they were actually true. We just can't be sure. Maybe it was somewhere in the middle. Now, with all the drama surrounding Manny, his wife Jinky actually gave an exclusive interview in magazines. One issue was Star Studio, where she addressed her husband's alleged affairs.
So the 3 names that Jinky brought up in the connection with her husband was Aaron Mina and Valerie Conception and Krista Ranillo, and they all denied the rumours, of course. But about Ranillo, Jinky was quoted in the story saying, "There are so many single men out there, right? Why does she need one who is married?" So she said. ABS and CBN News wrote in December 2009 about Manny giving a diamond-encrusted ring to his wife as a peace offering after the couple had several public tiffs due to rumours about the boxer's alleged affair with the actress Krista Ranillo. Manny denied the affair. However, the Philippine Star noted that Krista Ranillo was in Los Angeles while Pacquiao was training for his next fight, which we will come to, which was against Joshua Clottey. ABS and CBNnews.com reported that Jinky said, in her words, "For my family, for my children, I will survive. I need to suppress every challenge. I need to be strong. God is just testing us. I know the Lord wants us to be together." She also said that she hoped the public would put rumours of Manny Pacquiao's extramarital affairs to rest. That's done. It has a period at the end. There are no question marks in the minds of the people. Asked how much he, as in Manny Pacquiao, loves his wife, Pacquiao answered, "Of course, I really love her. She's my wife. We have many children." They have 4 children together: Jamel, Michael, Princess and Queen Elizabeth. All of their names are tattooed on his left arm. The ongoing soap opera fascinates the public, especially while he's running for Congress. As the May 10 election drew closer, there was word that Pacquiao was up in the polls. The suspects, who allegedly had ambushed his political rival, were about ready to be charged with possessing firearms during the election. But interestingly, Pacquiao's legal counsel intervened and requested that the case be dismissed. This, of course, raised more questions that Pacquiao was involved with this supposed ambush.
Pacquiao's attorney made a statement. Nothing in the affidavit of arrest alleged that the arresting officers saw the respondents carrying firearms. Then they searched first before arresting. It should be arresting first before searching to make it a warrantless arrest. This is why many of his fans advised him to avoid politics altogether. During his campaign, a man said, "Manny Pacquiao gives us money. When I had colon cancer, he sent me money. If you need chemo," he says, "I will pay for everything. He is like Santa. I told him, don't enter politics. You will destroy your name." He says, "I will be a different politician. That is my dream." His dream was turning into a nightmare, and the purity of Manny Pacquiao was being destroyed by politics. He spent 44 days campaigning and spending millions, probably more than $7 million of his own money. Bob Arum offered moral support, and in every press conference before the election, Arum kept saying that he would soon be calling Pacquiao the Honourable or Congressman Pacquiao. Arum went to General Santos to support Pacquiao and called it one of the most exciting trips of my life. Now I am considering if I should pack it in as a boxing promoter and become a political advisor. Ali was a wonderful person, but it was more about Ali. This kid spent a fortune running for office, and he did it not to aggrandise himself, but because he really believes he can make a difference. To people who worried that if Pacquiao won, he would give up boxing, Arum said that he talked with Pacquiao about the sport and that Pacquiao emphasised that he wanted to take on Mayweather. On election night, May 10, 2010, Pacquiao won by a landslide, and he grinned. A congressman. He did it, but the stress made him sick. At the end of the election, he would be hospitalised with an ulcer and spent a few days in hospital.
Definitely took his toll. On March 25th, 2010, Manny went to Manila's Sofitel Philippine Plaza for the televised Banquet of Champions, where Pacquiao accepted the Fighter of the Decade award and gave a short speech. "What we do in life lasts an eternity. Everyone has a calling," he said. He then signed autographs until 3 a.m. and even posed for a photograph with Justin Timberlake, who was in town for a concert. A bantamweight, Zed Gorez, was also at the party. Now, he had won a fight in Las Vegas, but after he collapsed in the ring due to a brain hemorrhage and slipped into a coma, he was obviously not fighting anymore. He was now recovering back in the Philippines and was sitting at a table. Pacquiao went over to Gorez and quietly gave him a check for 1 million pesos, which was about $22,000. He then whispered in his ear that he wanted him to use the money to start a new life. Ronnie Nathaniel's, the commentator who was the radio voice for Flash Elude's fights and who also worked as Ferdinand Marcos's liaison officer to Muhammad Ali for the Thriller in Manila, he said this of Manny's fame in the Philippines. He said, "If Pacquiao was an arrogant son of a bitch, no one would pay him any attention." The frenzy around Pacquiao is worse than around Ali. With Ali, they are in awe. With Pacquiao, the people are fanatical. In June 2010, Smoking Joe Frazier presented the Sugar Ray Robinson Fighter of the Year award to Manny Pacquiao. It was his third Boxing Writers Association of America Fighter of the Year award, tying him with none other than Muhammad Ali and Evander Holyfield for the most in the history of the organisation. Then Freddie Roach was given the Trainer of the Year. It was his record-setting fourth, the Eddie Futch Trainer of the Year award, and he gave an emotional speech.
Roach said, "Hoping that young prospects would come through my door and this guy named Manny Pacquiao shows up one day. After one round with the mitts, I knew he was special. Manny, you're the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life." Before all this, everyone knew that the fight with Mayweather Jr. was now dead in the water. Following the victory against Cotto, there was much public demand for the fight between Pacquiao, who was the #1 pound-for-pound boxer and the 5-division world champion, against Floyd Mayweather Jr., the #2 and former #1 pound-for-pound boxer. Pacquiao reportedly agreed to fight Mayweather on March 13, 2010 for a split of $50 million up front, and it was later agreed that the venue for the fight would be the MGM Grand Garden Arena. However, the bout was put in jeopardy due to disagreements about the Olympic-style drug testing. The Mayweather camp wanted random blood testing by the United States Anti-Doping Agency, also known as USDA, whereas Pacquiao refused to have any blood testing within 30 days from the fight because he thought it would weaken him, but he was willing to have blood taken from him before the 30-day window as well as immediately after the fight. Freddie Roach, on the other hand, commented that he would not allow blood to be taken from Pacquiao 1 week before the fight. In an attempt to resolve their differences, the two camps went through a process of mediation before a retired judge. After the mediation process, Mayweather agreed to a 14-day no blood testing window. However, Pacquiao refused and instead only agreed to a 24-day no blood testing window. Consequently, on January the 6th, 2010, Pacquiao's promoter Bob Arum declared that the fight was officially off. Because of Pacquiao's reluctance to submit to random blood testing to the extent requested by Mayweather, despite lack of evidence, the Mayweather camp repeated their suggestion that Pacquiao was using banned substances,
which resulted in Pacquiao then filing a lawsuit for defamation, seeking damages in excess of $75,000. The lawsuit cited accusations made by Floyd Mayweather Jr., Floyd Mayweather Sr., Roger Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya, and Golden Boy Promotions CEO Richard Schaefer. Now, Alex Ariza was asked for a summarization on the whole drama, and he put it how we would probably perceive it. He said, "I think Mayweather is afraid. Here is how I see it. If you look at Leonard and Hearns, well, Hearns and Leonard are still talking about that one fight their whole lives. Mayweather would be associated with the biggest fight of our era, and he's going to be the loser of that fight. I have no doubt. I wish we were fighting Mayweather today. I've never seen Manny so fast and in such good shape. When it comes to fighting, Manny doesn't give two shits. He doesn't care. Doesn't matter how much money he has. He's acting, he's singing, fighting. That's like playing with a lion. He doesn't know how to go soft speed. It's all or nothing. Mayweather, on the other hand, will have to hear you lost to Pacquiao. You got knocked out by Pacquiao the rest of his life." That's what he believed. Well, Mayweather explained it this way. He said, "I understand Pacquiao not liking to have this blood taken because, frankly, I don't know anyone who really does. But in a fight of this magnitude, I think it is our responsibility to subject ourselves to sportsmanship at the highest level. I have already agreed to the testing, and it is a shame that he is not willing to do the same. It leaves me with great doubt as to the level of fairness I would be facing in the ring that night." The accusations and counter-accusations played out in the press, implying that Manny was cheating. Mayweather said, "I am taking a stand. I should get to choose who I want to fight."
Freddie Roach's opinion was that "I think Floyd is scared of Manny. I think the public is disgusted by the controversy, but they still want the fight to happen." Pacquiao, well, he was hurt by it all. He said, "He is accusing me of using drugs or whatever, and I'm trying to ruin my name in boxing. I'm disappointed of what he is accusing me. I feel bad. I know that's his style. We cannot change that. We are different. Maybe he's afraid of me. Maybe he's not ready. I don't need to fight Mayweather." Bob Arum explained, "Mayweather is using this to harass Manny. This fight is down the drain. It makes no sense at all. My kid is as clean as a whistle." In the wild card, the entourage strutted around wearing t-shirts that said, "100% God, no steroids." Some may think that because Manny did not follow the process of taking random blood tests by the USADA, then he was incriminating himself. But the truth is, he had abided by the Boxing Commission laws. He was just not going to succumb to the rules introduced by Mayweather. Freddie Roach said, "It's just that Mayweather is trying to make a bigger fight and he is trying to sell all of his bullshit." And then he addressed the blood test issue and he said, "If Manny gives blood for 3 days, he is a fucking hypochondriac. He will feel weak and he will be mopey. He won't smile. He'll be angry. He will be pissed off for 3 days. It's just the way it is. I don't know if it is mental or physical. For me, giving blood doesn't bother me. Some people pass out when they give blood. For him, I lose him for 3 days I lose him to sparring.
And Freddie Roach then explained in more detail, if I give blood on day 13, then I lose him for a day, 13, 12 and 11. And those are critical days coming up to a fight. I can't really afford to let him do that, and I would never let him get into the ring not mentally 100% ready. Every fighter who's dominated their divisions in boxing, like Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, have always challenged people at the higher weights for the world title. I mean, Leonard 6 times, 6 weight divisions. Hearns 6 times, 6 weight divisions. Roberto Duran 5, Oscar De La Hoya 5, Floyd Mayweather 5. It's natural. People get bigger. People get thicker. A statement from Pacquiao's promoters specified that he had already agreed to take blood tests as prescribed, including one in January when the fight was to have been officially announced, and one no later than February the 13th, which was 30 days before the proposed match. The additional blood test request, Roach claimed, was simply an excuse to destroy the fight. He then issued a war cry saying, "We're going to knock this bum out. He knows it and he is scared." Mayweather Jr., on the other hand, believed that he was not only the best fighter in the world at this time, but the best fighter that had ever lived. And he said, in only Mayweather's words, "I got respect for Sugar Ray Robinson. I've got respect for Muhammad Ali. But I'm a man just like their men. I put on my pants just like they put on their pants. What makes them any better than I am? Because they fought 1,000 fights? In my era, it's totally different. It's pay-per-view now, so things change. It's out of the old and in with the new. Things change. Like I said, Muhammad Ali is one hell of a fighter, but Floyd Mayweather is the best. Sugar Ray Robinson is one hell of a fighter, but Floyd Mayweather is the best."
After the proposed mega fight was derailed, Pacquiao took on Ghanaian Joshua Clottey on March the 13th, 2010 at Dallas's Cowboy Stadium, the first since it opened on May 27th, 2009. Pacquiao dominated the fight and won an easy one-sided decision, with all 3 judges having it in his favour 120, 108, 119, 109 twice. Pacquiao threw a total of 1,231 punches, which was at the time a career high, landing just 246, as most were blocked by Clottey's tight guard. His opponent threw a total of 399 punches, landing just 108. Clottey said after the fight, he is fast, he is strong too. Now attentions quickly turned back to a Mayweather fight, who had just defeated Sugar Shane Mosley convincingly, but there was a moment when he was caught with a punch that clearly shook him to his boots. One can't help but wonder what would have happened if Manny landed that punch. Pacquiao told Bob Arum after his Clottey victory to make the Mayweather fight happen, and he even suggested that he would take the blood test, calling Mayweather's bluff. Floyd was happy to hear this, and he responded, "If Manny Pacquiao takes the blood and urine test, we can fight. If Manny wants to fight, it's not that hard to find me." But the tension between camps was lit again, and it was reignited by Roger Mayweather, who said, "I don't know how good he is. I can't say how good he is because every time I see him fighting, he must have something in his system." Anytime a guy doesn't want to take a test, that tells you already about the guy. And Freddie Roach countered by saying, "People say, how can a guy go from 106 pounds all the way to 147 without being on steroids? But if you take that thinking into consideration, at age 16, Floyd Mayweather fought in the amateurs 106, and then he went on to 154 to fight Oscar De La Hoya. So he must be on steroids too, I guess."
And Roach continued, he said, "But I'm not going to say that because he's just a good fighter, and I respect that. The thing is, it's not unusual for the best fighters of their era to dominate many weight divisions because that's where all of the challenges are. I think that Mayweather was just trying to make the fight bigger. I think that he's trying to make the Pacquiao fight bigger down the line. I think he's just doing his thing. I have trouble giving Manny Pacquiao vitamins. The Mayweathers are just trying to tarnish his reputation. It's the first time I've really seen him angry with a fighter. He says, if we fight, I will knock Floyd out. Well, negotiations seemed to start again for a bout in November 2010. Then it all turned even more bizarre. So the president of the HBO, Ross Greenberg, became a mediator to try and get this fight on due to the animosity between both camps. Arum negotiated the fight via Greenberg through Mayweather's advisor, Al Heyman. Arum wouldn't reveal the exact terms, but he said the blood testing issue was now settled. The two parties seemed to come to a gentleman's agreement, but nothing was ever signed. Then, as we hear all the time on social media in the circus of the boxing world, Arum gave Mayweather 2 weeks to sign the contract. That deadline passed, forcing Arum to tell the gathering press Floyd, for whatever reason, didn't want to commit. Mayweather had chosen to ignore the proposed contract and went quiet. To be fair to him, he had more pressing matters with his uncle Roger Mayweather, who was actually set to go on trial for charges of assaulting and choking a female boxer, an allegation which of course he denied. But then the hush from the Mayweather camp turned noisy again when his advisor, Leonard Ellerbear, released a statement.
This is what the statement read. Here are the facts. Al Heyman, Richard Schaefer and myself speak to each other on a regular basis, and the truth is, no negotiations have ever taken place, nor was there ever a deal agreed upon by Team Mayweather or Floyd Mayweather to fight Manny Pacquiao on November 13th. Either Ross Greenberg or Bob Arum is not telling the truth, but history tells us who is lying. Well, Greenberg, who was the mediator in the negotiations, decided to release a statement saying that negotiations had taken place, and it said, "Fights like Mayweather versus Pacquiao are significant because of these fighters' ability to connect with sports fans around the world. It's unfortunate that it won't happen in 2010. I had been negotiating with a representative from each side since May the 2nd, carefully trying to put the fight together. Hopefully, someday this fight will happen. Sports fans deserve it." Bob Arum moved on and got a fight for Pacquiao against an in-house fighter and another Mexican, Antonio Margarito. Now, this was not the best of choices, considering that Margarito was still suspended in most states due to the Plaster of Paris incident before he was beaten up by Shane Mosley in January 2009. Once the California Department of Justice laboratory later confirmed the substance found on his wraps before the Mosley fight was similar in nature to Plaster of Paris, the California State Athletic Commission voted unanimously to revoke his license for at least 1 year. Now, we did go into this on the Cotto vs Margarito Legendary Nights episode, so please do go back and listen to that. It is one of our earlier recordings. In August 2010, Margarito was denied a boxing license by the California State Athletic Commission, but he received a license in Texas, where he was set to fight Pacquiao on November 13th at the Cowboy Stadium.
So the bout was for the WBC Super Welterweight title, and Pacquiao would be fighting for an unprecedented 8th world title in as many different weight divisions. Now, in the weeks leading up to the fight, he had added to his popularity when he featured in a segment on 60 Minutes, but his training was always behind schedule as he battled with injuries. His fitness coach, Alex Ariza, was confident that Pacquiao would win, but worried that he would slip up and, as he said in his own words, get some brain cells destroyed apparently. Well, aside from the injuries, Pacquiao's seat in the Philippine Congress was also creating overwhelming responsibilities for the elementary school dropout. In the midst of training, Pacquiao met with the Philippine president as he tried to secure funds for a hospital in his poverty-stricken district. Meanwhile, it seemed that the media couldn't get enough of him, from his politics to his pugilism, his rags to riches story. Ring magazine actually called him the baddest congressman in the planet, and at one point 5 television crews were following his every move. In addition to the 60 Minutes, he did his regular pre-fight appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live and sang Imagine with Will Ferrell and appeared in Nike advertising campaigns and was the subject of a documentary by Leon Gast, an Academy Award-winning director of When We Were Kings. Pacquiao also went to San Diego to coach basketball and travelled to Nevada to support Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid in his re-election campaign. His PR team boasted that Pacquiao's endorsements actually helped Reid seal his come-from-behind victory from Sharon Angle. This was due to the large community of Filipinos who actually worked in Nevada's gambling industry. Then just before the fight, a tragedy struck for his promoter, Bob Arum, when his 49-year-old mountain climbing son John went missing.
Arum admitted that he presumed he's dead. I was just sitting there in that room praying I was wrong. Maybe it's just a broken leg, I told myself, or something like that, and we'll have a laugh about it all later. Arum flew to Seattle, and then 3 days later, they found his son's body. He sadly confessed, "You lose a child and it's like losing a piece of yourself, never to be replaced." When Pacquiao heard the devastating news, he graciously said he would dedicate the fight to the memory of Arum's son. With all the sidetracks going into the fight, his team began to fear the worst, that Margarito, 17 pounds heavier and 5.5 inches taller and a 6-inch reach advantage, might actually be too much for Pacquiao. Then things turned even more sinister when an hour before the fight, a member of Pacquiao's team accused the Mexican of trying to take some illegal stimulants. Freddie Roach complained that Margarito had taken Ephedra, a banned stimulant, prior to their title fight and demanded an immediate urine test. Texas boxing regulators refused and said Margarito would be tested for a complete drug screening following the fight as normal. Roach's associate, Billy Keane, was in Margarito's dressing room and saw a bottle of something he believed to be Ephedra, or a substance containing Ephedra. He then alerted Roach, who complained to the commission. Keane told Yahoo Sports via text message, "I saw them try to give Margarito hydroxycut and caught them. He had a coffee loaded with Splenda and sugar. The doctor said it was his choice to take the pills, but it would probably come up in the post-fight urine analysis. I did not see him take any pills." Then, to maybe sidetrack the banned stimulant allegation, Margarito's trainer, Robert Garcia, actually complained about the way Pacquiao's hands were being wrapped. He insisted that they be re-wrapped, but the commission approved the initial wrappings.
Top-ranked president Todd DeBoof said both sides agreed to put the disputes behind them and take it up after the fight. When both men finally got into the ring, Pacquiao was in complete control, throwing powerful combinations from different angles with both hands, as he always did, and he began to beat up his much bigger opponent. Then in the 6th round, Pacquiao's left arm was momentarily strangled by the ropes. Sensing his opportunity in the one-sided fight, Margarito actually landed a devastating punch to Pacquiao's ribs, and his legs shook a bit, very briefly. There is no question he was hurt and nearly hit the canvas, but he did bite down on that mouthpiece and he fought on. Yahoo Sports again wrote that by the 9th round, Margarito's right eye had been nearly closed. His nose was bent, the rest of his face was bloodied and bruised. So pronounced was the destruction that Pacquiao kept turning to the referee and begging him to stop the fight, to end his massacre of his bigger, stronger man. Pacquiao said he actually pleaded with the referee. He said, "Look at his eyes, look at his cuts." Margarito's face was being turned into a mangled mess as some fans screamed from ringside for the fight to be stopped. Manny even broke the Mexican's orbital bone and began to hold back on his punches in the last few rounds of the fight because he was worried that he could really do some serious damage. Margarito somehow managed to hear that final bell, and Manny Pacquiao took a unanimous decision over a courageous but clearly outclassed opponent. He won a title in his 8th weight class, even though he didn't get close to that contracted 150-pound weight limit. He officially actually weighed 144.5 and entered the ring at 148, while Margarito had bulked up by the time the fight came around to 165 pounds by the time they stepped in the ring.
Why the ref and ringside doctor allowed it to continue remains a mystery, as they sat back and watched Pacquiao disable Margarito's reach, height and strength advantage with one barrage after another with precise combinations. It was a brilliant and brutal performance, which left many boxing insiders wondering if Margarito would ever re-enter the ring again after receiving such a sustained beating. Pacquiao said afterwards, "I can't believe I beat someone this big and this strong. He then said, "My opponent looked bad and I wanted the ref to stop it, and I didn't want to damage him permanently. This is not what boxing is about." Freddie Roach echoed those sentiments when he said, "He has the worst corner. It probably ruined his career by not stopping the fight. He might never fight again. He took too many unnecessary punches. It was all so foolish. Their fighter was caught 2 or 3 extra rounds of savage punches." Margarito, on the other hand, who had refused to quit, was proud of his efforts, and he said, "I'm a Mexican and we fight to the end." His corner countered Roach's feelings by saying they couldn't throw in the towel on such a warrior. Bob Arum acknowledged he was now out of fighters to test the 8 division world champion when he said, "I promote both Antonio and Miguel Cotto. Both of them got an arse whipping from Manny. I ran out of my own guys. He's beat all my guys." Roach then issued a rally cry when he said, "After this great performance, Mayweather needs to put up, or shut up, or move out of the country. Face it, Manny's way above him at this point. I remember when Mayweather was ducking Margarito. If he doesn't fight Manny now, we know this guy should retire." In Manny's 2 fights during 2010 against Joshua Clottey and Antonio Margarito, he made a staggering $32 million, tying him with the New York Yankees star Alex Rodriguez as the top earning athlete in the world.
And in 2011, Nelson Mandela's daughter actually wanted to give her father, a big boxing fan at the time, a 93rd birthday present. And that was Pacquiao versus Mayweather. And according to Pacquiao's promoter, his fighter was also willing to take any drug test they wanted, but Mayweather wasn't interested. Apparently, he wanted $100 million for himself to fight on the Mandela birthday bout, which is potentially what it's going to be called, and thereby bringing the negotiations to an abrupt end. So attentions turned to a fight against Sugar Shane Mosley at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas on May the 7th, 2011. It was a fight that the public were not impressed with. In fact, Pacquiao's Barney, and not the up-and-coming fight, became the trending topic on Twitter. And he reassured everyone that his hair was inspired by his hero, Bruce Lee, and not what everyone else was saying on there, Justin Bieber, as some suggested. Well, Top Rank decided to take the fight from HBO to Showtime in an attempt to up his marketing appeal in America. A documentary about Pacquiao was then shown on CBS during prime time. He travelled to New York, where he was profiled by a Wall Street Journal, the New York Times and the NPR, and then took a private train to Washington, D.C., where Pacquiao helped Senator Reid in his re-election campaign. He stood on the US Senate floor with Reid, introducing him to his colleagues, and he said, "I'm going to take a few moments to talk about a friend of Nevada and a friend of mine. His name is Manny Pacquiao." And Reid gave Pacquiao a United States flag, got him an audience at the White House, where he had a 5-minute meeting with President Obama. Reid said, "I try not to bother the president, but I bothered him on this occasion because I felt that the president should acknowledge this man and the enthusiasm that people here in America have for him." After the visit, an emotionally moved Manny Pacquiao said he was honoured by this opportunity.
As of August 2011, Floyd Mayweather was still fighting the defamation suit that Pacquiao had levelled against him, while Oscar De La Hoya, who had also been named in the suit, and Richard Schaefer were dismissed from the suit after they formally apologised to Pacquiao by stating, "Richard Schaefer and Oscar De La Hoya, on behalf of themselves and Golden Boy Promotions, wish to make it crystal clear that we never intended to claim that Manny Pacquiao has used or is using performance-enhancing drugs, and further state that we do not have any evidence whatsoever of such use. Manny Pacquiao is one of the greatest fighters of all time, and we apologise if anyone construed our prior remarks as in any way claiming or even suggesting that Manny uses or has used performance-enhancing drugs." There were other ongoing legal issues rumbling in the background for Mayweather, but we will save that for another episode. In February 2011, Bob Arum sent a letter to numerous companies announcing that Top Rank had taken full control of Pacquiao's sponsorship and endorsement deals. Before Top Rank took over, more than 40 people had claimed to represent Pacquiao on various business deals, which had brought massive confusion. A specialist, one who had once worked for the sports agency IMG World on endorsement deals for Tiger Woods, was brought in to lead Pacquiao's efforts. Michael Conks, told the Sports Business Journal, "I think we've been losing millions and millions in endorsements for Manny. It's just confusing to corporate America. We know there's a short span remaining in his boxing career. Now we need to look at how to sustain the lifestyle he has now. In all honesty, we don't have the greatest reputation for fulfilling our commitments. I'm trying to straighten that out by being more selective and not jumping at everything." Pacquiao's friends sign the contract and get the money, but it takes them forever to fulfill. We don't need that kind of reputation.
And in May 2011, when Hewlett-Packard signed Pacquiao to endorse its tablet computer, a television advert actually featured Manny using a HP product and singing the ballad "Sometimes When We Touch," which he sung with a singer-songwriter, Dan Hill. Now, as of August, their remake was number 7 in the adult contemporary charts, apparently. And Hill said this of Manny. He said, "Pop singing is all about believability. Manny has a very good range. His tone is very pure. He has incredible breath control and an astonishing ear. I was impressed with his incredible focus. When I was teaching him, he was so inside the moment of the instruction that I only had to tell him one time and Manny would sing it back perfectly." Hill said the remake had been a hit because listeners, especially women, were actually taken by the comparison of a boxer singing a sensitive song with a passionate conviction. Hill said, "Working with Manny has been one of the most touching experiences I have had as an artist. This song wasn't about making money, it was about the love of music. There is something so likeable about Manny. He is a humanitarian, he is innocent, naive and sincere." Well, on May 7, 2011, Pacquiao was scheduled to fight Sugar Shane Mosley at the MGM Grand in Vegas. In preparation, Manny ran up the Hollywood Hills with a guy called the Running Monk, a long-distance runner who actually ran a marathon in 2 hours and 21 minutes, apparently. So the Running Monk described Manny as a half samurai warrior and half Buddhist monk. And while improving his cardio in the hills of Hollywood, the monk witnessed Manny pull up with calf cramps, something that his coaching team did not pick up on and would be a problem for him in his next fight and beyond. If there were warning signs of Manny, now 32, starting to feel the effects of a 57-fight career when running, there were no such problems when he was sparring.
Manny was destroying his sparring partners one by one. A sparring partner said his punches felt like getting hit with a baseball bat. A few days before the fight, Mosley was confident and he said, "I believe I can knock Pacquiao out. I hit anyone square on the chin a couple of times and he'll go to sleep." Pacquiao was not overlooking his 39-year-old opponent and he said, "Shane Mosley is still strong and moves like he is 29 years old. He is bigger than me and strong." At the presser, Manny moved away from being the boxer and became the politician when he said, "The biggest fight of my life is not in boxing, no. The biggest fight of my life is to help end poverty in my country." He then announced he would wear yellow gloves for his bout against Mosley, yellow being a symbol of hope and unity. He urged support for the organisation Gawad Kalinga, which helps build houses for the poor, and then said, "I'd like to invite you all to join us and wear yellow on Saturday. I believe there is hope and we can win this fight together." There wasn't much yellow in the crowd come fight night, but maybe there was more support for his cause on the streets of Manila. Now moving into the fight, and in round 3, Pacquiao hit Mosley with a solid left and Sugar crashed to the canvas. This was the beginning of the end for Mosley, who became more defensive after the knockdown. But before Pacquiao could finish him, his left calf muscle kept cramping up as a result of those treacherous runs in the Hollywood Hills. In between rounds, he pleaded to his cornerman to massage it, and when he came out for the next round, he was no longer feeling any more cramps as he continued to dominate Shane Mosley.
Between rounds 10 and 11, Mosley actually begged his corner to stop the fight. "You've got to stop the fight. I have a blister on my foot." His cornerman said, "Settle down, Shane. You're cut from a different cloth, baby." "I've got a blister on my foot. I can't move," he says. "You've got to dig down and find it. It's in you. It's in you for real, dog. I'm going to talk you through this, soldier. It's in you. It's in you for real," apparently. Well, it wasn't. Mosley simply hung on until that final bell to the disappointed sound of the crowd booing, Pacquiao actually went on to take a unanimous decision and retain the welterweight title. But he was put out when he actually heard that crowd boo. He said, "It wasn't my fault. Of course, I'm happy that I won the fight, but my first concern is the satisfaction of the crowd. I want to give a good performance. I think he felt my power. But what am I going to do if your opponent doesn't want to fight you toe-to-toe?" Mosley's trainer called Pacquiao the Rubik's Cube of boxing because no one can figure him out. After the one-sided nature of the Mosley win, Aaron made his prediction if he fought Mayweather at this moment in time. He said he would beat the crap out of Mayweather. I guarantee it. And the person who knows it the best is Floyd Mayweather Jr. Top Rank then decided to arrange a fight between Manny Pacquiao and one Manuel Marquez, now 37. It would be their third meeting, scheduled at £144 on November the 12th, 2011. After both encounters had their controversies, Roach stated that he wanted Manny to leave all doubt behind and obviously go and win the fight. A 4-city press tour covering an estimated 25,000 miles across 3 countries started on September the 3rd in Pacquiao's adopted hometown of Manila and ended on September the 8th in Mexico City.
Like in Pacquiao's previous fight against Mosley, Jimmy Jameson, the former lead vocalist of the band Survivor, sang "Eye of the Tiger" as Manny entered the ring. Pacquiao, who took home $22 million for the fight, was taken to the limit for the first time since the last Marquez fight. But the clever counter-punching Mexican was even better in a bruising battle. Marquez was both accurate and fast throughout, but Manny was the aggressor and landed some sharp punches of his own, which the Vegas judges clearly favoured. The fight went the 12-round distance, but when the majority decision was announced, the sellout crowd at the MGM Grand Arena threw bottles and cans towards the ring. Marquez, who picked Pacquiao apart with right hands almost every time he tried to get on the inside, landing good hard flurries, felt hard done by it, and he said, "This was the second robbery, and this one was the worst. We won with clearer punches." He then expressed his anger when he said, "It's hard when you're fighting your rival and the 3 judges too," pointing to the fact that 2 scored the fight to Pacquiao 115-113 and 116-112, with the 3rd judge scoring it a draw at 114-114. Pacquiao, of course, well, he was happy and he said, "My fans are very happy because they thought I won." Interestingly, Pacquiao was behind on one scorecard and ahead by 1 point on a second going in to the 12th round. Around, the crowd roared with expectation of a classic finish that failed to deliver for the most part. Both were tentative and only started letting their hands go toward the end of the round. A round that 2 judges gave to Pacquiao while the 3rd gave it to Marquez. Pacquiao said, "He was ready for my punches. I thought I blocked a lot of his punches."
The result had mixed opinions. HBO actually polled a group of boxing writers and experts after the fight. So 46% saw Marquez winning, 42% saw it a draw, and only 12% saw Manny Pacquiao winning the fight. Now, despite the controversy, this was the 15th straight win for Pacquiao. And please accept my apologies for being quoted as saying a 14-fight winning streak in part 1 of this episode. My excuse is that Manny didn't deserve to take this win. So maybe in hindsight, I almost didn't count this as a 15th victory, but that's my mistake and just wanted to correct that. He improved his career record to 54-3-2, while Marquez fell to 52-6-1. But this would be the last victory in one of the most impressive winning streaks in boxing history, a sequence that is difficult to match even among some of the greats in boxing. Manny headed back to Manila to carry on his political career when on January the 20th, 2012, Mayweather called Pacquiao, a telephone conversation this was, and this is what was recorded. This is Mayweather saying, he asked about a 50-50 split. I told him that can't happen because what can happen is you can make more money fighting me than you have made in your entire career. Mayweather actually offered to pay a flat fee of $40 million for a proposed fight, but would not allow Pacquiao to share the revenue. And Manny confirmed, because of that, I spoke to Floyd and he offered me an amount. He didn't talk about pay-per-views here, and that's it. I can't agree with that. I told him I agree with 55 and 45 split. So that's in his favour as well. So their fight negotiations had failed once again. So the undefeated American opted to challenge Miguel Cotto instead. Interestingly, the Puerto Rican was actually negotiating with Manny Pacquiao originally for a rematch, but they could not agree on what weight to fight at. Manny wanted to fight at 147, while Cotto couldn't make it. He couldn't make that weight, so he accepted a fight with Mayweather instead in a higher weight class.
After assessing other potential opponents in Lamont Peterson and a fourth fight with Juan Manuel Marquez, they decided on a defence of the WBO welterweight title at the MGM Grand in the summer of 2012 against another in-house fighter, the undefeated Timothy Bradley, who agreed to step up in weight. The Bleacher Report by Kevin McRae summed up the fight in a nutshell, and it reads, "A tough, hard-nosed and likeable guy, Timothy Bradley, getting absolutely outclassed by a fighter for the ages. A good fighter doing his best but being beaten in every facet of the fight by a great fighter. Every time Pacquiao let his hands go, he hurts him, Bradley. Every time Bradley let his hands go, you just hope he wouldn't get hurt." As the final bell sounded, I, like everyone else in the arena and at ringside and watching on HBO pay-per-view, scored the fight decisively for Manny Pacquiao. When Michael Buffer read the first card, 115-113, and said it was for Manny Pacquiao, indicating a split decision, shock was an appropriate response. When the second card was read, 115-113, for Timothy Bradley, shock turned to outrage. When the third card was read, giving Bradley the decision victory, shock turned to absolute stunned disbelief. The third judge scored the bout 115-113 in favour of Bradley. HBO's Jim Lampley called it a terrible, bogus decision. Tim Bradley has scored an upset split decision victory over Manny Pacquiao. God only knows how. His partner, Harold Lederman, said that decision was a crime. Teddy Atlas on ESPN didn't hold back on his opinion and said it's either corruption or incompetence. There'll be a rematch. It speaks to the corruption of the sport. The criminals will be rewarded. A disappointed Lou DiBella said, "People, a great sport is now on a respirator. Boxing is presently a polluted playing field in every respect. Tonight was par for the course."
There was uproar, and even Lennox Lewis got in on the act. He said, "Maybe not worse than my draw with Holyfield, but still bad nonetheless." And lastly, Don Rafael of ESPN couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. He said, "It was one of the most outrageous decisions I've ever seen." The least disappointed was actually Manny Pacquiao. He explained that "I did my best, but I guess my best wasn't good enough. I've been watching his fight tapes. There were no surprises. He never hurt me with his punches. Most of them hit my arms. I don't know what happened." Bradley, who we can't really blame, explained that it was a good fight. Every round was pretty close. Pacquiao won the early rounds. I won the later rounds with my jab. I have to go home and see the tapes to see who won. So even he sort of didn't really know. In our opinion, it wasn't hard to score. I mean, we would probably have it, myself, 117, 111 was probably a fair reflection of the fight. 116, 112 would have been kind to Bradley. I mean, it was completely, he obviously got robbed. Bob Arum explained it this way. He said, "When I came into the ring after the fight, I said to Tim, 'You did very well.' And he said, 'I tried hard and I couldn't beat the guy.' You talk about killing boxing. Even Bradley's manager, Cameron Duncan, had it 8-4 for Pacquiao. Something like this is so outlandish. It's a death knell for the sport. I have both guys and I'll make a lot of money in a rematch, but it's ridiculous. So you have these old fuckers who don't know what the hell they're looking at. It's incompetence. Nobody who knows anything about boxing could have Bradley ahead in the fight. It was a terrible decision. Although Arum expressed his disappointment, he was actually targeted by some of the reporters who felt that he was the catalyst of a fixed fight. And one reporter, Tito Garcia of fansbfans.com, actually interrupted Arum's press conference by loudly accusing him of fixing the fight. Garcia was physically removed from the press conference for his comments.
Following the very controversial decision, the WBO ordered an urgent video review of the fight, and all 5 judges on the committee all scored the fight in Pacquiao's favour. 118-110, 117-111, 117-111, 116-112 and 115-113. But they still did not overturn the result. A total of 57 unofficial scorecards were collated. 54 of them 57 scored it to Pacquiao, and only 3 of them scored it for Tim Bradley. It was a robbery, but some felt that it was justice for the Marquez third fight. Then on September 25th, Mayweather and Pacquiao actually reached a confidential settlement in their federal defamation case. In a statement released through the mediator in the case, the Mayweathers said they wish to make it clear that they never intended to claim that Manny Pacquiao has used or is using any performance-enhancing drugs, nor are they aware of any evidence that Manny Pacquiao has used performance-enhancing drugs. So no reason for the fight to have not gone ahead as originally planned, which makes it even harder to comprehend that we should have to wait 5 years for a fight that would inevitably disappoint. But of course, we'll come to that later in the episode. Now, following the 3 controversial fights between Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez, it was decided that a 4th fight on December the 8th, 2012, billed as Fight of the Decade, should be Manny's next fight once again at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Both fighters promised throughout the build-up that they would be aggressive, in hope of scoring a definitive victory, by knockout preferably. Well, in fact, they were true to their words, delivering the best fight of the series in an all-action bout that did indeed end with one of the greatest knockouts in boxing history. ESPN wrote this: Pacquiao rocked Marquez in the second round, and then the fight really heated up in the third round when Marquez scored his first knockdown, dropping Pacquiao with a right hand. Pacquiao was clearly hurt and shaky, but survived the final 70 seconds to make it out of the round.
Yeah, Pacquiao explained that it was a good shot, but I was able to come back and take control of the fight. Manny cramped up again in the fourth like he had done in the Mosley fight, but he was back out in the fifth like normal. ESPN again, they wrote, in the 5th round, he was moving well, and the fighters rumbled in a round of the year candidate, maybe the most exciting round of the series. Pacquiao landed a nice left hand, rocking Marquez, sending him reeling and forcing him to touch his glove to the mat for a knockdown. But Marquez responded, going right at Pacquiao and hurting him with a right hand. They slugged toe-to-toe for most of the rest of the round. Marquez admitted, he caught me with my hand down. It was an error and we corrected it. Then the moment came. Pacquiao picked up where he left off in the 6th, landing on Marquez with consistency. With 10 seconds remaining, Pacquiao landed a left cross, causing Marquez to push him into the ropes. Positioning shifted, and Pacquiao had Marquez backing into the ropes as he regained his balance. Pacquiao double feinted a jab, but Marquez ducked under the second jab and unloaded a right hand on Manny Pacquiao's chin. His head immediately snapped back violently as he fell face first to the canvas. At ringside on HBO commentary duty was Roy Jones Jr., who shouted those famous words to Jim Lampley: "He's not getting up, Jim. He's not getting up, Jim. He's not getting up." And Lampley's reply was, "No, he's been knocked out." And he was completely knocked out. Referee Kenny Bayliss didn't bother to count as Pacquiao lay on the canvas motionless until he was revived and sat on his stool 2 minutes and 20 seconds after going down. Marquez admitted, "We always work on that punch that we mentioned when doing our Legendary Nights episode, and one you picked up on, Sean."
Marquez continued to say, "The change in rhythm was important. We knew he was going to come out aggressive, so we had a fight plan that was more technique. We were able to capitalise on it. We knew it was going to be a very difficult fight, but not an impossible fight. We worked strength, we worked speed, and you can see the result." Roach said, "Manny came back after the first knockdown. He was in charge. He just got a little too careless. He was hurting Marquez up until the knockout." When Pacquiao regained consciousness, he and Marquez embraced, and the Mexican said, "You are a great fighter," putting an end to this modern-day rivalry. The Ring magazine named Pacquiao Marquez for the 2012 Knockout of the Year and Fight of the Year, and Marquez was named Fighter of the Year. Later in December, The Telegraph reported that Mayweather said Pacquiao's association with promoter Bob Arum is the reason why their fight will not happen, and he said, "We all know the Pacquiao fight at this particular time will never happen, and the reason why the fight won't happen is because I will never do business with Bob Arum again in life, and Pacquiao is Bob Arum's fighter." In 2013, Manny was re-elected to the 16th Congress of the Philippines, running unopposed. Additionally, his wife Jinky was also elected as Vice Governor of Sarangani, while his younger brother, Rogelio, lost his bid as congressman. Manny then took 11 months out of the ring before returning on November the 24th, 2013 to take a 12-round decision against Brandon Rios and get back to winning ways after 2 back-to-back defeats for the first time in his career. On January the 7th, 2014, FightHype.com published an interview with Mayweather in which he called Pacquiao a desperate dog who is chasing a mega bout due to his tax problems. In response, Pacquiao challenged Mayweather to a fight for charity.
Yeah, Manny said, I challenge him to include in our fight contract that both of us will not receive anything out of this fight. We will donate all the proceeds from the fight, guaranteed prize, should there be any, gate receipts, pay-per-view and endorsements to charities around the world. He then added, Floyd, if you're a real man, fight me. Let's do it for the love of boxing and for the fans. Let's do it not for the sake of money. Let's make the boxing fans happy. That, of course, didn't happen. Instead, Pacquiao took on Timothy Bradley on April the 12th, 2014, at his favourite venue, the MGM Grand in Vegas. ESPN.com summarised the fight. Bradley had promised to go for a knockout, and he did just that, wading into a battle even though he is not known for having much power. He has only one knockout since 2007 against a long-faded former lightweight champion, Joel Casamayor, but it did not deter him. Still, that strategy played into Pacquiao's hands because he was so aggressive, bordering on being reckless. Pacquiao let his hands fly throughout the fight, and although he couldn't knock Bradley down, he landed dozens of powerful punches and left no doubt that he deserved the victory to reverse that split decision loss he suffered in June the 9th, 2012. That victory for Manny made him the WBO welterweight champion once again, who actually required 35 stitches after an accidental headbutt opened a cut over his left eye with only a few seconds of the fight remaining. Manny admitted after the fight, I picked up more steam in the second half when I made adjustments. Bradley is much better than in the first fight we had. He hurt me on the chin. Then a month later, at least 5 major media outlets suggested that there were serious negotiations for the Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight.
A very unlikely source, a Hollywood waiter/actor named Gabriel Salvador, who had forged a friendship with CBS network president Leslie Moonves. Their partnership came from the love of boxing, and with CBS, the parent company of Showtime, which had invested heavily in boxing and had spent a huge amount on a multi-year deal with Floyd Mayweather. Salvador told Moonves that he believed he could make the fight happen if he could get Moonves together with Freddie Roach. Salvador believed that together they could cut through the politics and get the fight over the line. So Salvador approached Roach and he agreed to meet with Moonves to get the ball rolling. At that meeting, Roach gave him the green light to start making things happen. Moonves got both camps together with Salvador's help, and after difficult negotiations, it was not long before both camps actually agreed to fight on May the 2nd, 2015. Now the consensus is that without Salvador's key introduction, the fight wouldn't have happened. Moonves and Bob Arum have confirmed Salvador's pivotal role in getting the negotiations over the line. For his role, Salvador felt that he should have been given a finder's fee, but was actually not paid any fee by CBS, Arum, Roach, or even Pacquiao. So, the fight was pretty much a done deal by the time Manny ended 2014 with his third consecutive victory, which was a 12-round unanimous decision over Chris Algieri in China, who was knocked down 6 times in the fight. Asked about his next fight at the post-fight news conference, Pacquiao said, "The people deserve that fight. The fans deserve that fight. It's time to make that fight happen. It's been a long time. I want that fight. They're always denying the fight. I think the fight has to happen." 5 years too late for our liking, but it would be announced shortly. During the gap between the negotiations and the announcement of the fight, an article by Slate was printed on Manny's limited attendance in Congress.
Yeah, interestingly, it read, according to the Philippine Daily Inquirer newspaper, while Manny, he's as in Manny's the country's richest and best known politician, Pacquiao showed up for work only 4 days last year, the worst attendance record in the House. When asked by reporters about his record in February, Pacquiao pointed out that he was in training for 2 fights last year. He said, "I don't want to boast about what I have done in my district, but you can see my accomplishments in my district. It's important that you help your constituents and not just sit in Congress. In Congress, all you do is file bills, and the bills have no benefits to the people." Pacquiao's truancy has prompted some of his political opponents to call for his resignation. But the fact that his political career is more of a hobby than a job doesn't appear to bother the majority of the people in the Philippines, where he's revered as a national hero, and his fights are unofficial national holidays. And given the Philippines legislature's reputation for corruption, the bar is set pretty low for elected officials. So very rarely in Congress, but never mind. He would spend some time away from Congress as a fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. finally loomed. Then on December the 12th, 2014, Mayweather proposed a May 2nd, 2015 fight with Pacquiao, citing his frustration at not being able to make the fight happen earlier, apparently because Pacquiao lost both to Juan Manuel Marquez and Timothy Bradley respectively, which is nonsense. He also stated that Pacquiao was not on his level, but let's make the fight happen for the people and the fans. On January the 13th, Pacquiao agreed to terms for the fight. Then 2 weeks later, Mayweather and Pacquiao met each other face to face for the first time during an NBA game between Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks. Pacquiao said they exchanged phone numbers and would communicate with each other.
Pacquiao's advisor, Michael Conn, said that the two met at Pacquiao's hotel for about an hour to discuss the pending super fight and work out the remaining issues. On February the 20th, Mayweather announced that the fight was official and a contract had been signed for a fight to take place on May the 2nd, 2015 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Now, there are many reports on this fight, some indifferent, some biased, and some that don't explain the fight as we saw it. But we found one report that best described not just the fight, but the hype that surrounded it perfectly. Now, this is a report from Rafael Garcia, who wrote for Fight City. And it reads, "The MGM Grand Garden Arena was filled with celebrities who paid exorbitant prices, thousands of dollars, for a nosebleed seat to witness the so-called fight of the century. Jay-Z and Beyonce were there, as were Denzel Washington, Mark Wahlberg, P. Diddy, Robert De Niro, Michael Jordan, Paris Hilton, Magic Johnson, and countless more A-listers. All of them, exalted by their respective PR agents, showed their faces in Vegas and smiled to the camera so people watching from home could say, 'I saw them there.' Casinos and bars up and down the Las Vegas Strip filled up with weekend warriors spending hundreds of dollars on cover charges and bottle service just to see the fight via closed-circuit television, eating and drinking their way through an underwhelming and completely unnecessary undercard, but happy in the knowledge that they were part, in a way, of the biggest boxing contest we've seen this century. They duly emptied their wallets just so they could later say, 'I was there.' Viewers all over the world settled in front of their televisions or computer screens to take part in the same experience."
Yeah, Rafael Garcia, great explanation there. He continued, he said, "Those in rich countries had to fork over serious dollars to purchase the pay-per-view, but observers in choice locations like Mexico and the Philippines actually watched it for free. Millions throughout the globe, some waking up at ungodly hours to do so, would all become part of this communal sports experience. Mayweather versus Pacquiao was as huge a fight as this generation has ever seen, and if Vegas was to host, the world was its oyster. Everyone tuned in to say the same words, 'I saw it,' and in the end, most were left wondering why they bothered. Diminished versions of the two of the top prize fighters of our era met inside the rope circle, and while so many expected fireworks and drama, in other words, a contest worthy of being labelled the fight of the century, What they got was yet another tedious, underwhelming Floyd Mayweather fight, complete with long stretches of inactivity and zero drama. And I'll tell you what, that's a great analogy of the fight. Mayweather took the decision on 3 of the judges' scorecards, 116, 112 twice, and then the third 108, 110. The fight itself did not live up to the hype, but it lived up to the revenue expectations, generating somewhat around $300 million and $400 million in gross revenue, according to early estimates, including announced ticket sales of $72,000 for the night. Floyd Mayweather said after the fight, "He's a hell of a fighter. I take my hat off to Manny Pacquiao. Now I see why he's one of the guys at the pinnacle." Pacquiao felt that he deserved the nod. He said, "I thought I won the fight. He, as in Mayweather, didn't do anything. And so did Freddie Roach. I thought we pulled it out. I asked him to throw more combinations between rounds, but maybe he fought flat-footed a little too much." Well, that was the end of that then. All that drama, and the fight didn't live up to expectations. But after almost a year out of the ring after that defeat, Manny returned to the MGM Grand to take on Timothy Bradley in their rubber match on April the 9th, 2016.
Pacquiao went on to knock Bradley down twice in rounds 7 and 9 and outpoint him by a very clear one-sided unanimous decision after all 3 judges scored the bout in his favour, 116-110. After the fight, Pacquiao said, "As of now, I am retired," and later shared, "I'm going to go home and think about it. I want to be with my family. I want to serve the people." 2 months later, on June 23rd, it was reported that Pacquiao would return to the boxing ring later that year after a very brief retirement. The following month, Bob Arum said that Pacquiao will return to the ring sometime in the winter, likely to be October 29th or November 5th, in a main event on a pay-per-view card staged in Las Vegas and televised on HBO. Arum said in an interview, "He has now given us the go-ahead to shop for a venue and an opponent and see if we can do it on a particular date or dates. We've been trying to work out a day that doesn't interfere with his senatorial responsibilities and his ability to train." Subsequently, on July the 18th, Bob Arum confirmed that Pacquiao was set to fight on November the 5th at the Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. Manny was keen to seek approval from his Congress colleagues before making a full U-turn on his retirement decision. So then, Senate President Franklin Drillon expressed his support for Pacquiao's reported return to boxing. He was eager to make it official. Michael Kontz said in a report that while Manny is committed to politics, he is happiest when he is in the ring. And he said, "Manny's primary concern and obligation is to fulfill his senatorial duties. But he just misses boxing. He misses the training. He misses being in the gym. You can see when he trains, it's like a stress reliever for him. His mood changes. It's like he's in happy land."
Michael Kontz then confirmed, "I am working with Bob and Manny and working closely with the Senate President to make sure the dates are okay. We're doing this properly." And on August 3rd, it was announced that the WBO welterweight champion, Jesse Vargas, will be the next opponent for Pacquiao at the Thomas & Mack Center, as you said earlier, Sean. Pacquiao confirmed this after a 2-hour meeting with Bob Arum and Michael Kontz held in Manila. He actually agreed to this fight in Vegas, and he said, "Yes, the fight is on. I have agreed to a November 5th date with reigning WBO welterweight champion Jesse Vargas. Boxing is my passion. I miss what I've been doing inside the gym and in the ring. My entire training camp will be held in the Philippines so I can attend my legislative works. This is my campaign promise and I'm determined to keep it." When in a press conference 2 months before the fight, it was announced by Arum that the fight would be self-distributed by Top Rank pay-per-view. As Mayweather sat ringside with his daughter, he watched on as Manny dominated the fight as he went on to win the WBO welterweight title for a 3rd time after flooring Vargas in the 2nd round. He went on to win by unanimous decision. Pacquiao picked up a tidy sum of $4 million, plus a percentage of the revenue of the fight, which sold about 300,000 on pay-per-view buys in the United States, earning him an estimated $18 million in pay-per-view revenue. So to kickstart 2017, a bout with Australian Jeff Horn was initially announced in January. However, the month later, the fight was in doubt after Pacquiao then decided to fight Amir Khan, at the United Arab Emirates instead. However, as we know, that fight fell through, so Horn was finalised as Manny's opponent on April 2017 and would take place at the Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia on July the 7th, 2017.
In front of over 51,000 fans, Manny Pacquiao fell to a 7th career loss in a close, hard-fought battle via controversial unanimous decision when the three judges scored it 117-111, 115-113 and again 115-113, all in favour of Jeff Horn. Many believed Pacquiao had actually done enough to retain the WBO title, but it was closer than some suggested. Horn won the first round clearly, and Pacquiao won the 9th round in big sessions where he almost stopped Horn, but he survived the round and was told by referee Mark Nelson that he needed to show something more in the next round or he would stop the fight. Apart from them 2 rounds, the other 10 rounds were pretty close and not really easy to score, and it depended on what style you preferred. Pacquiao's work was cleaner and he was the superior fighter. However, the bullish Horn was always busy, and his work rate alone would likely have swayed several close rounds in the eyes of the judges. Well, as always in our opinion, on BTR, we think Pacquiao did enough and took the decision 115-113. But our judging, of course, is irrelevant. It wasn't a robbery per se, but the result did go to the wrong man. Now, despite having lost 4 of the last 9 fights, Pacquiao remained humble and he said, "I'm professional. I respect the judges." It was reported that Jeff Horn would receive $500,000 for the fight and Pacquiao was guaranteed at least $10 million. Pacquiao, now 38, stated he would activate the rematch clause and fight Horn again at the end of 2017, but he opted to go a different route. After fighting in Australia, Manny wanted to fight in another country, so on April 2nd, 2018, a fight with Lucas Matisse was officially confirmed for July 14th in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Pacquiao would go into the fight without Freddie Roach. Instead, his lifelong friend, Buboy Fernandez, who had served as his assistant trainer for many years, would take over.
Yeah, but in a fight that would mark the first time in 34 fights since 2001 that Roach would not be in Pacquiao's corner, he scored his first knockout win over 8 years. He actually dropped Matisse a number of 3 times before stopping the Argentinian in round 7 to win the WBA regular welterweight title. Pacquiao said after the fight that Matisse has the power, so hands up all the time and do my best. I'm surprised because Matisse is a very tough opponent and I knocked him down. I was focused and patient in the fight and I worked hard in training. We did a good job in training. We were pushing hard. Matisse had no excuses, stating that he lost to a great fighter and a great champion. And that was the Argentinian's last professional fight. He actually retired from the sport at the age of 35, while 39-year-old Manny Pacquiao would continue to fight on. Manny finally broke ties with Bob Arum and Top Rank, and he actually signed with Al Heyman in October 2018, but he did reunite with Freddie Roach. Manny said, "Me and Freddie have a good relationship since 2001. We don't have problems in terms of training, sharing our knowledge about strategy, techniques in training. We don't have problems with that." Roach was advised to supervise the training camp while Buboy Fernandez worked the mitts and physical parts of the training due to Manny's concern of Roach's health. Pacquiao was confident that Roach and Fernandez would continue to work well together in preparation for his next big fight, which was against Adrian Broner on January the 19th, 2019, once again at the MGM Grand, and would be live on Showtime pay-per-view as the main event. Pacquiao said, "Buboy and Freddie, they're a team. Buboy is always there. He has experience, many fights with Freddie. So I think Freddie can instruct Buboy to do something like that, because Freddie's not young anymore."
Manny continued and said, "I feel pitiful with Freddie. I'm praying for him, for the healing of his sickness. My plan, my thinking is he can use Buboy to do mitts in training, supervise and watch. Roach can rest and just watch the training and instruct the training strategy-wise and advise some techniques like that, because Buboy, he knows what Freddie wants." Pacquiao went on to successfully defend his WBO regular welterweight title against Broner via a unanimous decision and never seemed troubled throughout the fight. During the post-fight interview, Jim Gray asked Pacquiao if a Floyd Mayweather rematch would happen, and Pacquiao answered, "Tell him to come back to the ring and we will fight." Mayweather, who sat ringside, was asked by Gray to nod at the camera if he wanted a rematch with Pacquiao, but Mayweather did not give an answer. Outside the ring, Senator Manny Pacquiao's lack of attendance in Congress continued when he posted the worst attendance record for senators in the third and last session of the 17th Congress as it adjourned, according to data released by the Senate on June 9, 2019. Out of 61 plenary sessions from July 23, 2018 to June 4, 2019, Pacquiao attended 49 times, incurring 12 absences, said the Senate Public Relations and Information Bureau. In the times he was present, he arrived twice after the roll call had been made. Now, despite the poor attendance, he still managed to pass 4 laws from the bills he filed. A month later, and Pacquiao was back in the ring again against Keith Thurman, where he took the WBA super welterweight title by split decision in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Late in the first round, Pacquiao caught Thurman with a right hand to the chin after a left to the body and knocked him down as he was moving backwards.
Yeah, the only knockdown in the fight. We actually done a BTR episode on this one, Sean. We done our predictions and then we picked up on what happened after. So interesting to be coming to that sort of moment. Yeah, very interesting. So the former champion Keith Thurman, who was actually 10 years younger, was visibly hurt by that body shot, and he later admitted that the body shot was a terrific shot. I even took my mouthpiece out of my mouth just so I could breathe a little deeper. With that victory, Pacquiao also became the first boxer to be recognised as a 4-time welterweight champion, moving ahead of Jack Britton and Emil Griffith. He also became the oldest welterweight champion in boxing history at the age of 40. This was his last fight for 2 years due to the coronavirus, which affected everyone worldwide. It was during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 that Pacquiao worked with the Alibaba Group co-founder Jack Ma to help him bring the Philippines 50,000 COVID-19 test kits through their respective charity foundations. Then when the party president of PDP, Laban, Coco Pimentel, resigned, Manny actually became an acting party leader for 6 months before he was voted out, although he is still regarded by a faction as the party leader, by his faction as the party leader. On January 19, 2021, Pacquiao was actually stripped of that WBA super welterweight title due to inactivity, which promoted the regular champion at the time, Yordenis Ugas, as the legitimate champion, while Manny was then designated as that champion in recess by the WBA. Ridiculous. Well, on May the 21st, 2021, Pacquiao made an announcement on his social media account that he would return to the ring on August the 21st in Las Vegas and face the undefeated unified WBC and IBF welterweight champion at the time, Errol Spence Jr. However, the fight was cancelled on October the 10th because Spence was actually forced out when he actually suffered an eye injury. On that same day that they released that fight was cancelled, he was replaced by Ugas. So the new opponent meant that Pacquiao would now be challenging for the WBA super welterweight title, the same one he was stripped of in the end. All ridiculous.
The fight was a competitive affair, with Ugas using his jab and right hand effectively to control the distance. While Pacquiao had moments of success throughout the night, he never really settled into any rhythm and was a lot stiffer than usual. Pacquiao himself admitted after the fight that his legs were tight. At the final bell, Ugas was awarded a unanimous decision victory, and that was the last time Manny Pacquiao fought professionally. In his post-fight interview, Manny addressed speculation of retirement from boxing and said, "I don't know. Let me rest first and relax and make a decision if I fight again." On September the 19th, 2021, Pacquiao announced that he would be running for president of the Philippines in the 2022 Philippine presidential election after being nominated by a faction of the ruling party PDP Laban. The following day, he indicated his retirement from boxing, telling Tony Gonzaga in an interview, "My boxing career is already over. It's done because I've been in boxing for a long time and my family says that it is enough." 10 days later, Manny Pacquiao officially announced his retirement from boxing in a social media post finishing his boxing career with a record of 74 fights, 62 wins, 39 by way of knockout, 8 defeats and 2 draws. On October the 1st, he formally registered his candidacy under the Cebu-based party PRO-MDI. This was in accordance with the MP3 alliance established by PDP Laban under Pacquiao's faction with PRMO-DI and the People's Champ Movement. His platforms include solving corruption and a promise of nationwide housing projects for the poor. However, Pacquiao only placed third in the election with roughly 4 million votes and later conceded to Bongbong Marcos, who won by a landslide. Manny has now hinted at a possible return to boxing.
He has. So in a few articles that were released only last month, so August 2023, in Sports Illustrated's one in particular we picked, and they explained that Manny Pacquiao, an 8-division boxing champion and one of the Philippines' most recognisable stars, is exploring ways to qualify for the 2024 Olympics in Paris. This was actually said by President of MP Promotions, Sean Gibbons. So professional boxers have been allowed to compete in the Olympics since 2016, and Pacquiao, 44, who last fought in 2022 when he defeated a YouTuber, DKU, in an exhibition fight in South Korea. Well, he's looking at a return to amateur boxing. Gibbons actually wrote in a text message to Sports Illustrated, 100% under the right circumstances, Manny would love to compete. It has always been a dream of his to represent the Philippines in the Olympics. He never had a chance because at 16, his family was dead broke and he needed to go professional to help everyone. And Abraham Tolentino, the president of the Philippine Olympic Committee, told Filipino outlets that Pacquiao would be welcomed onto the national team. The committee is investigating ways for Pacquiao to qualify as one of the 124 male boxers eligible. Pacquiao could compete in the Olympic qualifying tournament in the first quarter of 2024 when they're going to take place. The Philippines could also attempt to qualify Pacquiao as a universality place competitor. So 9 universality places will be awarded for the 2024 Games per Olympics.com. That's what they said on there, with 5 going to women and 4 to men. The confirmation of universality places is due to take place on June the 7th, 2024. So keep an eye out for that. Now, Pacquiao at this moment of time apparently weighs around 66 kilograms and will have to choose between 2 different weights if he does get the chance to compete, which would be the 63 kilo group, which is the lightweight division, or the 69 kilo, which is the welterweight category. And they're the weights, the kilograms are the weights for the Paris 2024 program. So keep your ears peeled and your eyes open, because you may well see Manny Pacquiao competing in Paris in the Olympics 2024 for the Philippines.
Wow. Just when you think the story is over, and it's not. We've just done a 2-part career profile on Manny Pacquiao, which exceeds 3 hours in length, and the ending for this episode is very unusual for us, because normally we're talking about either a fighter that's finished the career and they're doing something else in boxing now, or we're covering people that are long since deceased off the planet. We're doing Manny Pacquiao, very much alive, very much ready to go into the Olympics in 2024. So there's definitely more to add to this story if that does transpire next year. But at the point of doing this story, it's one hell of a story. These always are one hell of a story. It's the most recent fighter that we've ever done, I think, for the Career Profiles podcast. And I'm really, really chuffed that we've got the opportunity to do it, because he has got one hell of a story. One day in the future, there will be a big film on him, or a huge complete documentary that will be visualised by a big TV network company that will do something on him. But there's still more to tell in his story. We don't know whether he'll ever go on to become president of the Philippines. Of course, one of his dreams. Will he win a medal at the 2024 Olympics? Well, of course, if all of this does happen, there's definitely something we can pick up on in the future. But just focusing on his life and his career, it really is a true rags to riches story, this.
Oh, massively. I mean, this guy was, what did he go 4 days without eating once, and still found time to box because he needed some money for the family. And as he said, the reason why he wants to compete in the Olympics is the fact he was robbed of that opportunity because of the fact that he had to turn pro and earn money for the family to feed himself and his family. And complete rags to riches. The whole country absolutely adores. He's a national hero, hence why he is in Congress. He had his own party. He tried to run to become the Philippine president of the country. I mean, that's incredible. He's been in the White House. He's met Obama. He may well one day be the president of the country at some point, maybe the next 10 years, maybe even before. But, I mean, the story rolls on. Could he go on to win a gold medal in the Olympics? I mean, we'll have to see. That'd be crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's been a tremendous story. It really has, Sean, from everything that we've been through here. That incredible run, that fight sequence where he just constantly fought all the top guys. I mean, you could argue maybe one or two in there weren't quite top of their game, but the rest were high level, absolute superstars. And yes, the Marquez win was a bit controversial. He again gets done by Bradley because he really probably should have got on to get that 16th win in that sequence, and then gets absolutely sparked by Marquez. I mean, what a tremendous knockout that was. But the whole thing, Sean, what a tremendous fighter. I think the one thing you're going to point to, especially in this second part of the episode, is the fact that this Mayweather fight happened way too late. And I think with the information we've managed to provide with you guys there, I know people love Mayweather. They do love him. But I don't think there's any escaping the fact that he did not want to fight him any time between 2008 to 2010. He wasn't interested in taking him that point. And he waited for him to dip. His performance is slightly dipped. He beat Bradley, but got absolutely sparked by Marquez. And I think from that point, that is when he realised it's time to fight him. Because Mayweather, physically, he's so fit, the lad. I can't knock Mayweather for that. He just bided his time. He knew I'll be fit enough and ready for when Pacquiao dips and I can jump on that. And I think that was a great article from Fight City because of the fact that it was a very uneventful night, wasn't it, Sean? That fight was a real disappointment, wasn't it?
It was a disappointment. It was 5 years too late, and I'll always be solidified in my opinion, and I've never changed my opinion, that it is one of those fights that we should have got in 2010. Manny Pacquiao in 2010 was a different fighter he was in 2015. It's quite evident. So for me, if we would have seen it in 2010 and not 2015, we could have been looking at a different change, of course, in the history of the sport. Obviously, it never happened. We never got it, and it's a lot of ifs and buts. You can't help but theorise and fantasise about what would have been if that fight would have happened. And I do believe that he was avoided by Mayweather. I genuinely believe it. I really do believe that Mayweather avoided him. That's one thing we've always looked at in Mayweather's career, and eventually we will do one on Floyd Mayweather for career profiles. But I've always felt like he very much was very shrewd, because he is a very shrewd businessman. I will give him that. And he was very shrewd in when he picked his opponents and when he fought his opponents. I remember when he fought Ricky Hatton in 2007, and at that point, you couldn't have knocked Mayweather for taking that fight because Ricky Hatton was the undefeated fighter. Yes, okay, he was coming up in weight, but at that point, I was happy. I wouldn't have said he was somebody that was cherry-picking his opponents, because I don't think he cherry-picked Hatton. Hatton was the natural person to fight at that point because of how well he was doing. So, yeah, you can sort of say, right, he didn't always maybe cherry-pick his fights. But I think with this Pacquiao fight in particular, I always maintain that there was no reason why he couldn't have took that fight in 2010. He had no evidence that Manny Pacquiao was on performance-enhancing drugs. He just made the allegations and then ended up having to settle out of court because of it. Why didn't he take the fight? We'll never know. But in our minds as boxing fans, all we see from the outside looking in is somebody that really didn't want to take the fight because he knew how good he was at that time and that he was seemingly unbeatable. As you said, Johnston, as soon as he took a dip in his career and the business made sense for Mayweather, naturally that's when he went for it. And of course it goes on to become one of the biggest selling pay-per-views of all time in boxing history. It exceeds all expectation in terms of its monetary value. The deliverance in the ring was poor. It wasn't great. Mayweather, I felt like he was avoiding Pacquiao for most of that fight, and when he did engage, it wasn't the way people wanted him to engage. So people didn't enjoy the fight because of that, because it was Manny running around trying to get to Mayweather. And people will sit there and say, do you know what? That's the art of boxing. Hit and not be hit. And yes, you are right. Absolutely. But sometimes as a fighter who's claiming to be the best ever, you've got to go toe to toe. You've got to engage. You've got to be participating in that fight rather than just being someone who's there in the fight. And for me, he didn't do that. And I think if maybe Mayweather would have been more willing to engage in that 2015 contest, we may have seen a better fight, and maybe we wouldn't feel as aggrieved by the fact that it didn't live up to expectation, because at least if Mayweather would have engaged in that fight and he still went on to beat Pacquiao, then we could at least hold our hands up and say, okay, it was 5 years too late, but at least Mayweather went at it. I think because of the way he conducted himself in the fight, and it felt like he was avoiding, running, so to speak, at times, for me, it just felt like a massive, massive letdown, and one of the most hype fights in boxing history just ended up being one of the most underwhelming.
It did. It really did. And you're right. I mean, look, you can call that the art. It's not the art for me. If you're talking about the art of boxing, yes, the whole point is to hit and not get hit, but to run away from someone. That's what he done in that latter stages of his career, made himself very small and won rounds by a single one punches or a couple of punches to win a round, and then nullifying what the output was from his opponents. And his opponents, you know, he had some great names. I mean, you look at the De La Hoya fight as well. He had, I think that first half of Mayweather's career, when we do a career profile, will be great. I'll be enthusiastic. I love every minute of that. It's the second part that really frustrates me, because I do feel that he did cherry pick and it was all about money. And he openly says it. You know, and then people to turn around and say, yeah, he's undefeated and makes him better than all the other guys. No. Because the one thing you remember with Manny's career and going through this career, Sean, you know, you look at the rivalries he had, you know, the 2 fights of Barrera, the 3 fights with Eric Morales, the 4 fights with Marquez. Henny fought them all. He had 3 fights as well with Timothy Bradley. Got robbed in one of them. Won all 3 of them in my mind. Never lost any to Bradley. But he never feared anybody. He really didn't. He'd go in the ring and fight. Look at the Margarito situation. Smashed him up. Destroys De La Hoya. Destroys Cotto. These guys they weren't dipping like Mosley was. They were big name fighters. And I know Marquez was older, 30, he's roughly the same age as Manny, but he was like a fine wine, Manuel Marquez, wasn't he? Tremendous fighter, and one that really does get overlooked. And maybe again, like talking about career profile, Sean, you know, Morales, Barrera, and I think one Manuel Marquez would be a great career profile, because what a tremendous fight he was. Really one of those guys that people just forget how good he was. And Mayweather just didn't fight him enough. I mean, look at the destruction of Hatton as well. I mean, from Manny, there was no doubt, there's no shadow of a doubt that he was one of the best fighters of his time. He goes down in history as a tremendous fighter, and all this drug allegation stuff, people still today will suggest it. He was never caught. And I'm not naive to ever say that drugs wasn't around in those days and as it is in today, because we already know that there was a huge problem with performance enhancing drugs, but there wasn't even a shadow of doubt. All people use is the fact that he came from such a small weight and went up in weight. It's natural. As you get older, you get heavier. And let's face it, when people actually... I'll ask you one question before we end this, Sean. What weight do you think is Manny Pacquiao's best weight? And although he had a lot of fights for me at welterweight, he never really got rid of anyone at welterweight. He would destroy them, batter the shit out of them, but he wouldn't be able to find that knockout blow. Whether that's an age thing or not, I think it was because he was too small for the weight. He really was too small for that weight. For me, from lightweight to just below welterweight, I believe was his most deadliest weight class. I think he was absolutely destructive at that weight. But yeah, just throw the question at you, Sean. What do you reckon is his best weight?
I was going to say the same thing, to be honest with you. I don't want to be different here, because I naturally, when you asked me that question, the first thing I thought of was lightweight or light welterweight, or what's known as super lightweight now. They were the 2 divisions where I felt like that's probably where he was at the peak of his powers. Some might argue, well, maybe, you know, the welterweight division is where he had more success. But I think even if you drop down the weights and you look at the super feather and the fights he has down there, you know, it is a hard question to answer, and it depends on what you base your answer upon. Do you base it upon the amount of victories, the amount of accolades he picked up during certain weight categories? And, you know, naturally you'd start to vie towards another one. But if I'm thinking about Pacquiao and his brilliant best, at his absolute peak, at his prime, where he was very destructive, you know, I'm thinking around lightweight, super lightweight, welterweight has got to be up there. You know, you can mix them around and say it was either one or of them. People will have different opinions on what we're saying here. Of course you will. You might say welterweight is absolutely, but I get what you're saying, Johnston. He wasn't as destructive at that. Yes, he was dominating. He was dominating fights and he was going the distance with big fighters, but he wasn't blowing them away in the same fashions that he was doing at the lower weight categories for obvious reasons, with obviously physicality and power being different as you move through the weights. So for me, I think about his most destructive best, and I'm going to stick with sort of lightweight, super lightweight, but maybe most achieved probably would be welterweight, 4-time welterweight champion. You know, obviously some of his big fights are up at that division, of course, and his most marquee fights are up at that division. But when we've done this in two parts, in some ways I feel like it is like two halves of a career, you know, like a George Foreman, for example. Like, he goes away and you've got this young, rugged, hungry, very powerful George Foreman. When he comes back, he's much smarter. He's still very powerful, but he's much smarter. In Pacquiao's career in the lower weights, he's a different fighter. As he moves through the weights, he becomes a different fighter. So it is effectively like two different careers. You get the younger, hungrier, more vicious Pacquiao, and then as he moves through the weights and he can't blow the fighters away, it's a more strategic Pacquiao. It's a more, you know, volume over power Pacquiao, and he has to adapt to the fighters and the weights that he's going up in. So effectively, it's like two careers with Manny.
It really is, and as you say, I mean, as soon as he sort of got to that featherweight limit with the Barrera fights, and then, you know, super feather Eric Morales. I mean, there are the times. I mean, to literally to stop Barrera and demolishing the way he did. I know Barrera was getting a bit older, and Morales, but even then, he wasn't that young. Morales was still a good fighter at the time. To lose to him and then go back and then beat him twice, you know, that was at super featherweight. So from there, it was just always going to be. So yeah, I'd say featherweight, super featherweight, and then moving into lightweight. Those were the days where he's just knocking people out. I mean, he's stopping them to some tremendous fighters, and then retiring Oscar De La Hoya. I mean, incredible fighter. He really was. I think those times were between. Yeah, from 2006, I'd say, even just before that, but around 2006, all the way up until 2010, he was absolutely amazing. He really was. Even beyond then, he still had some amazing performances. But yeah, I mean, what a fighter he was. The way he could just switch the angles, how aggressive he used to be, and how he managed to adapt and change. He used to have that amazing left hook, and then he was just taking people out of his right. I mean, they really worked on the right hand there. Two-handed fighter, southpaw, as vicious as Manny Pacquiao was. I'll tell you what, you could stick him in any era, Sean, couldn't you? Honestly, I think he caught at his peak against any other fighter in another generation in their peak. He's like a throwback fighter. He causes problems for anybody in anywhere between featherweight up to like just under welterweight. You'd have to say welterweight, but for me, he busted people up at welterweight. He just didn't have that knockout punch at times. It's been great though, isn't it, Sean, to finally do someone in a career profile that's still knocking around. I don't think we've done anyone this close up. Well, we've actually done a BTR one with the Furman fight. You know, we actually had done an episode on that. It's really strange to do that, and then now we're doing a career profile and so on. It's amazing. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if he does go to Paris and picks up a medal there.
It would be an amazing story, an amazing finish to his story, wouldn't it, to be able to do that? And if you think about, like we've said, accolades-wise, is the only 8-division world champion in the history of the sport. He's won 12 major titles. He was the first boxer to actually win the lineal championship in 5 different weight classes. I mean, he's also the only boxer to hold world championships across 4 decades, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. I mean, you know, these are some of the big accolades that he's got. You know, look at the glamour divisions he's been in. Look at flyweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight. You know, these are some of the big divisions across boxing that are classed as glamour divisions, and that he's been in and been part of and won titles in. And he's just got some absolute Hall of Fame accolades. It'll be one hell of a story, like we've said, and I've really loved covering it. And, you know, there will be probably an addendum to this in the future with what happens next. But for the time being, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this episode, the 2-part episode on the career of Manny Pacquiao. If you have, please do let us know on social media at career_profiles on Twitter, or the BTR Boxing Podcast Network, Facebook, Instagram pages, TikTok. If you're listening to it on YouTube, you can drop a comment below. Let us know what you think about the whole episode overall on Manny Pacquiao. If you've got any thoughts on Manny Pacquiao, any of his fights, any of the controversies, where he's at in his career, will he win an Olympic gold medal? Will it happen? Anything you want to talk about regards to this episode and Manny Pacquiao, please do let us know. If you've not subscribed to us on any podcasting platform, you can do it on Apple, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, or on any available podcasting app out there. I want to say a big thank you to the patrons of the podcast. Thank you so much for supporting us. We hope you've enjoyed your ad-free early access version of this episode. We really do appreciate your support. Thank you so much. If you're not a patron, please do go and check us out at BTR Boxing Podcast on patreon.com. We do have available membership tiers in which you can get ad-free episodes like this and every other episode that we release. Or you can also go one step further, get early access to episodes like this and our other series-based shows, and just generally support us. But if you want to go even further, you can get Patreon-only content. You can get episodes never been released to the general public, and you can get an exclusive series called Boxing Through the Decades. But that is it, guys, for this episode, this two-part special on the life and the career profile of Manny Pacquiao.